What's up, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Johnny, as well as Ebontis and JP from Itmejp, which I have to ask you what the hell that means, as well as the Dropped Frames podcast that he does with Co. And we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about Gamescom. We're going to talk about Black Myth and the couple sales it's had. Just a few sales that it's done. Just, but it's a single player game, guys. When it drops, we'll be able to report that it's failing completely as a single player game. The concurrents have dropped. It's a terrible thing. I want to say thanks to everybody who's watching. If you get a chance, you can subscribe. I think memberships have been turned on finally because this is the new channel. It took some watch time for that to go on. So if that has turned on, you can feel free to do it. But instead of doing that today, or instead of jumping to Patreon, you can always go and review this podcast when it's done. I would appreciate if you guys go to Mr. Ebontis' website, or YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube channel where he does basically guide/walkthroughs. Well, they're longer than a guide. That's the way I felt when I was watching your videos. So like more detailed, longer than a guide. But he did Destiny, and I don't hold it against him too much, but he did some amazing ones for Black Myth. So if you get a chance, check his out, and I'll post that in the comments section here in a bit, so you guys can go and subscribe to him and support, people who are trying to make it big on YouTube, or even trying to make it middle, trying to make it small, whichever that might be. So the reason why I wanted to get us all here is to talk about Gamescom as well as Black Myth, but some other gaming news, whatever pops up, maybe the new Xbox hardware. But first up, because we normally don't do this, but we have guests on, we'll ask what everybody's been playing. So, Ebontis, what have you been playing? Well, probably Black Myth. What did you play prior to Black Myth?
Man, I've been playing a lot of stuff. I almost have to go look and think. I've been playing First Ascendant, Once Human, less Destiny than I have in quite a long time, honestly. The way the schedule's been, the way the episode's been. And then I played through, what was it recently? Can't talk about one thing I'm playing, which I'm sure some of y'all are the same. And then a lot of Black Myth as much as I can. And then Kunitsuga Path of the Goddess. I beat that. Actually, that was my recent one too.
Can I ask you a question about that one real quick?
Yeah.
I thought that game, what I played was awesome. But then I saw there was some negativity around it, that people didn't enjoy it. Maybe there's some cumbersomeness. Maybe I haven't hit that part. I've only played about 2 hours. Does it get overly complex with the controlling of the people?
It's not even the complexity. I think the one thing that would probably, I guess, get on the tedious side is the little base building section of it. When you're going back to each of the kind of base hubs where you go through the level and you go back and you can build structures.
Right.
And the main reason you want to do that is just so you can get your currency for upgrading all of your villagers. It's mostly just as I'm doing that, it's I know I need to run over here and do the task, but I feel like I could, it's kind of like the meeting could have been an email kind of thing. I could probably do it from a menu as opposed to run around the level. But outside of that, the way you can choose to level up and spend and respec everything all the way through to the very end, the gameplay thoroughly enjoyed. And I didn't play what was the Marvel one?
Ultimate Alliance?
No, it had
Midnight Suns?
The Midnight Suns. Yeah, it had I didn't play that, but I know Lord Cognito, who I do a podcast with as well, he always raved about the gameplay was great, but then the Abbey was not so good. It's not that egregious by any means, but it just is kind of a tedious step that you have to do for upgrades. But the gameplay is fantastic all the way through. I would say that.
Okay.
So it's the game itself is really fun, but that little stuff, you're yeah, let me go back, base. Okay, next fight. Cool. So that was kind of my thing.
I thought it looked gorgeous. It was fun to play.
It's a fantastic looking game. The art style is really good. In my head, I'd probably give it about an 8. Overall, it's a great game. It's unique too, which is something I enjoyed, because if you're not paying attention during the combat, you'll definitely get caught with your pants down. It's fun.
Okay. I like that. You'll definitely get caught with your pants down. It's fun. Somebody's gonna clip that. JP, what have you been playing?
Great. I've been on here for 5 minutes. And
yeah. Well, you started out well. Trust me. JP, what have you been diving into?
I've kind of been all over the place as well. It's rare that I actually have a ton of games that I want to play all at once, just because of the frequency that we play through games, it being our jobs. But yesterday I was playing the WoW early access stuff, which is weird, just that it's early access, but that's a whole nother discussion point, I think. The War Within, yeah, that's the name of it.
Yeah.
Having fun with that. Played a little bit of Wukong. I want to play more. I've actually been watching a handful of streams and videos of that, and that looks really good. The late night off stream stuff, I'm still playing, like League. I have a terrible addiction to that. Relationship with that is probably a better term. And then before that, pretty much everything else. I played Destiny 2, exactly like Ebontis was just saying. I wrapped up that like 10-year journey and kind of put it away. And that's kind of sad where that game I think is at the moment. But I was happy with how it ended. And then, God, what else have I played? Kunimitsu as well. I thought you're right on point with that. I thought that was an awesome game. Enjoyed everything except for the town building stuff. So yeah, agree with that. And then like trying to think if there's anything else. Played First Descendant. What's like the oddball game? I'm trying to. I have not played through Dawn Trail, but I am like max level in Final Fantasy 14, which is a weird thing because I haven't done the story, but I'm like done with the leveling aspect of it, I guess you could say. So that's been interesting, especially going back and playing WoW now and not playing Dawn Trail. That's kind of a hard pill for my community to swallow, just because I've been like such a Final Fantasy 14 fanboy for years at this point. So all over the place, really.
What's the thought process around WoW? Like your return, like, are you going back? I mean, why are you going back versus other games?
I mean, a lot of it is I get caught up in the hype, right? Like Blizzard is very good at creating hype and generating marketing around new IP or old IP with new releases.
Cinematics
best cinematics by far. I would say still. But yeah, I wanted to dip in. I played Dragonflight. I did the story of Dragonflight, which was the previous expansion, and then hit max level, finished that story, and stopped. And so this one is just kind of like, I've always enjoyed the gameplay of WoW. I'm hoping that the story, I think I'm like level 74 with the cap being 80, and I finished like the first zone last night. And I think there's 4 zones in the expansion. So I'm just looking to see the story and kind of see if it sticks and see if I vibe with it. I also played a bunch of Diablo 4, so I'm kind of in a weird, like Blizzard is good again state, which I'm still,
right.
I say that. I don't know if I fully believe what I say when I say that, but I'm enjoying the games they've got right now. That is Diablo and WoW. I won't touch Overwatch ever again. But yeah, it's a weird state right now. Blizzard's in a weird spot.
They just keep breaking up with us. It's like that girl that you can't.
True.
You get, and then she dresses up nice as a cinematic. And you're like, all right, whatever. Come on back. And
you tell yourself that.
Yeah, you tell yourself no.
Changed,
it doesn't really matter. I would say I wish their cinematics. I wish they'd just be. It's probably a ton of money, but I wish they would just do a movie. Like I think their cinematics team is. It's not even nothing against anybody else's cinematics, and certainly I would say Monkey Wukong definitely looks really good. Monkey Wukong. Now I'm mixing up all of the terms
Myth.
for it. Yeah,
Black Myth, Wukong.
I just call it Wukong.
I call it black kung fu. Black. It's always going to sound wrong.
Careful
when I
with
say
that last one, by the way.
Oh, I know.
You'll be in my boat.
Trust me. If I would have got kicked long before this with the mistakes. I do think that they just nail it, man. There's something about their ability to just make everything look so phenomenal in those cinematics. And
Diablo
then
4,
you just want to be there.
The final cinematic in Diablo 4 blew me away. I forgot how good Blizzard cinematics were when I played that one. I was like, my God,
the other team knows how to nail it, man. It's ridiculous.
Even the expansion, I don't know if you've seen it, but the most recent expansion cinematic they did where they like rip a person's body apart like on screen and like take the arm and rip it down the center. You're just like, I don't want to see this, but also well done. Like,
yeah.
If you didn't watch Saw, now you're gonna get to watch a little.
Covering your eyes and peeking through them. Yeah, it's crazy.
It was wild how well done it was and how good it looks for sure.
Is that for Vessel of Hatred? Is that what that's for?
Yeah.
I need to watch that.
Vessel of Hatred. What about you, Johnny?
I say I need to watch that.
So I've been playing League as well. By the way, this is a big moment. JP, another League enjoyer
Uh-oh.
in here. What role do you play, JP?
I've kind of always, I guess if I had to say, I play I would say I play everything, but I guess if I had to pigeonhole it, it'd probably be ADC. Right now I'm jungling. I've never really been one to excel at League. I was always a Dota guy. My ex-wife is a VP at Riot, so I started playing League about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, in terms of just like actually actively playing it. But yeah, it's a lot to learn. Like even 3 years down the line, there's still heroes I've never touched. So
especially if you play different roles and stuff. So
yeah, yeah. So I'm jungling right now, but I would probably say ADC is where I feel most comfortable.
Awesome. Anyway, so I've been playing a bit of that, but of course Wukong has been the main thing after it's popped up as well.
Yeah, I like all the acronyms. I'm jungling, I'm EDC,
ADC,
ADTDFG. I'm like, I have no clue what these guys are talking about, but it sounds like they like it.
It's a different world, man.
It is a different world. I mean, I watched Johnny play one time, and I just checked out. He was streaming it in our Discord one time. Was it you and Abzy? And it might have been you and Abzy or something.
Yeah,
you guys were playing, and go here, go there, and I was like, yeah, okay. So anyway, there's got to be some housework I can do. I'm sure it's much. I mean, I love the a typical like the old Fate games and Diablos and stuff like that. You're still smashing shit, but for whatever reason, that particular game. It might be the graphics art style. I don't know. Sometimes you know how it is. Sometimes you see an art style and you're like, oh, that's not jiving with me particularly. Dungeons of Hinterberg is a good example of one that I bounced off a lot because of the cell shaded, the weird character styles. It was one of those games that took a while to really enjoy. I've been playing. Let's see. Okay, the only one I can talk about is Black Myth. Yeah, so I've been playing that. I've been enjoying it, and going back. Finding optional bosses. I looked at Ebontis. He had some guides, and there was one thing I didn't know about it that I was like, oh, yeah, hadn't even thought about that. So looking at his guides, looking at some other guides online, of course, fighting Cowboy, who is still, one of the best, like, walkthrough artists I've ever seen for those kind of games. Yeah. Unfortunately, didn't get the code. You know how it is. Like, code, you're never ever owed a code, and he's one of those guys who knows that. But for anybody out there, if you're starting, it doesn't matter how big you are, you can not get a code. He's huge in that. He didn't get one, but he started doing the walkthroughs. I started watching him, and you can see excellence. It certainly doesn't look like when I started. Like I'll look at my first. I always have to do that when I'm reviewing a game. Be like, do I want to show moment one footage? Like, do I? And then I'll see his moment one footage. I'll be like, damn it, is he playing early and then starting to pretending the walkthrough is new? He's like, oh, I just happened to find this optional boss by tapping this thing, jingling this drum, and then, looking to the right at the exact right angle at a particular time of day. But yeah, he's awesome. If you guys get a chance, Fighting Cowboy, a fantastic YouTuber when it comes to walkthroughs and Let's Plays. There are some game reviews coming up next week. When I say I can't talk about them, it doesn't always mean I can't. It just means that there's enough embargoes because this is a busy 3 weeks for reviews. And having broken a single embargo in my life after over 1,500 videos, I never want to repeat it.
I broke an embargo by 10 seconds on Tuesday.
Wow. I broke an embargo by 12 hours on Redfall.
I remember that one.
Was that an AM PM thing?
It's making me.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, you probably got some nasty emails. I didn't get any emails or anything. I just didn't know that it wasn't announced, that Starfield car that they added on Tuesday. I was doing like a sponsored stream for it that I had agreed to it, a week or two prior.
For 10 seconds. So you like.
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, this is that car in Starfield. And everyone's like, what? And then it's like, oh yeah, here's the Rev 8 in Starfield. That wasn't announced?
Yeah, nope. that one's close enough. You'll probably be okay.
Yeah, I was fine.
It also probably doesn't help that your 12 hours was on a less than stellar review, so that probably didn't do it
for
any
Redfall?
help.
Yeah. They were good. They were good. I mean, they were like as professional as they could be. Probably wanted to throttle me because it's a $1 billion industry we work in. But no, they were. Yeah. we worked it out, and it does suck because I knew that they were going to get hit just by what I played, because I don't talk to people prior to embargo. It's just not something I do. They say not to do it, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to take you serious. I'm not going to talk to anybody. But when you play something, you can sometimes look and go, yep, I don't think I'm going to be an outlier on this, and it happened. But AM PM, by the way, was what it was. The moment it went live,
I'm so afraid of that. Oh my God.
Dude, you know how afraid I am now? Man, I upload it not early anymore. Like, so this was
uploaded around launch.
Yeah, this was software, and it just had the wrong click, and then now I'll wait like 2 hours prior to the embargo, and then be like, okay, now I'm uploading. That way, if something does go wrong, you're like, okay, it does suck, but it's not like this. And with big games, I have 2 people look at it and verify all the timing's right. And that, like, because if you do cover a lot of games, 10 a.m. becomes 10 p.m. if you've been up for 48 hours, or 6 becomes 6:30.
And check that they gave you the local time versus the
time zone.
That happened with
that was this morning.
That was this morning. You had one this morning?
No, you and me this morning with time zones. I threw myself off, and then I threw you off. I was like, wait, no.
Dude,
and then
you had me so confused. I was like, you're all, I'm at my computer. I was like, what? You're ready to go now? What is happening? Did I agree to a
I translated 2 hours the other direction, so I made like a 4-hour shrink down to 0 minutes. It was kind of great.
Yeah, everybody in chat, what are you guys playing? I'm sure a lot of people are playing Black Myth, so we'll just jump into that first. So normally I don't separate nations because I don't care about the name. The total sales is total sales, whether it be, but even if you look at just the US sales, it is a hit. And then now you look at like the China sales in particular, because it's a big deal there. It's a huge cultural phenomenon. And 10 million, man.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
Dude, it broke every game but Battlegrounds, I think, for single player, or for a single, like.
They announced that it was 3 million today, but was that just Steam, or was that like collectively?
That might have been
across all
concurrent with
platforms?
PlayStation.
No, it was just. I think it was just Steam, man. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. I take that back.
Oh, I just saw Steam hit like 2.4, so that's what I didn't know.
And then another 600,000 playing on.
Yeah, I can pull it up on SteamDB. It's
yeah, I'm looking at it.
So the all-time peak's 2.4. So that's probably combined. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
It's still crazy though.
It's so bad. And I want to shout out. I'm not sponsored. We don't do sponsors on the channel ever. You know that. But I do want to shout out GeForce Now for a second, because Jay Reaper was playing in our Discord and beat 6 bosses on GeForce Now, and I was sitting there going, that dude's playing better non-natively than many of the native people and he was streaming to Discord. So he was playing down to us and then streaming back to Discord while he was playing. I was watching him and I was just like, we are in the fucking future, man. Like we are, because I was a big, it's not gonna be playable, that you're not gonna be able to do that on. And then in the last like 2 years, you guys know I've turned around pretty big, but you see all these people playing it, and it's the one thing that's really nice, guys, is that he doesn't have a PC at all. We live in a weird time where a person doesn't need a PC. He has to log into Steam and buy the game, obviously, but that's it. Yeah. And he's just, but it was just so everybody knows, it was so busy on GeForce Now that my entire region, I got an alert that said, all of your region is congested. You cannot attempt to play unless you switch entire region. It didn't say, please, you're going to be in a queue. There was
I wonder
no
if that's happened before.
It's never. And I'm on
I've
GeForce
never seen
Now
that
a lot.
Yeah, I've never seen that on GeForce Now before. That's crazy.
So 10 million, do you guys, the question, I'm sure it's probably asked by a patron too, because they talked about it this morning. Do you guys see a game like this getting a sequel quickly? Do you guys, I mean, like, what's the knock-on effect of this? I've never heard DLC for this game. I've never heard anything, and I think the developer even said this is not a vehicle for DLC at all.
It doesn't feel like it would be, because it's based on the Journey to the West story and everything, and they put everything into that. Obviously, that's a huge cultural thing for a mass point of this population, which is one of the big reasons it's getting such a big push. I would hope with the engine that they've built and like the mechanics and all of that type of stuff, it lets them, because what has this been, 6 years in development or something? I heard maybe. Because I remember the first trailer was like 4. I'm hoping with like the technology they've built and the animation and the artwork and stuff, they can take what they've learned and make something faster. But I don't know. Honestly, don't know if I would want a sequel, because it does seem like a single story. It feels like it would be kind of done, in my opinion.
I do want to correct one thing before somebody says anything. It's Unreal. they didn't build the engine.
Oh, that's sorry. It is UE5.
That's
Yeah,
all
it's
right. I
UE5,
just
yeah.
want to point
No,
it
no,
out
no,
because I
yeah,
know somebody
that's-
in chat or listening
no.
will be like, "Wait, what? What about you,
I mean, you
JP?"
can say
Like,
UE5, but I guess what they've made within UE5 that they're comfortable with. So,
oh yeah, we've seen some shit UE5 games.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
That's a harsh engine anyway. Like if you listen to Digital Foundry,
Yeah.
it'll never be fixed. I don't know if I believe John and Alex because they're so hard on it sometimes, but at the same time, it does seem like if you look at an Unreal game, you can almost identify it by either a micro stutter or the level shader stutter or something.
Yeah.
JP, do you feel the same way? No, you don't really see an idea of a sequel or anything from them.
Yeah. I haven't finished the game yet. I would say I think I'm actually still in chapter 1, with it being 6 chapters, I think is the full game. But yeah, I agree with Ebontis in terms of the story being pretty realized and it is that journey to the West story and that's it. There's not like there's nothing additive to that I know of. But I agree. I hope they make more stuff like that, right? Like from what I've played, and I do want to play more. I'm really enjoying the game. So if they continue down this path and do something else, kind of the same type of game, but with maybe some other different stories that are out there that maybe are lesser known, that could be cool. But I don't really know like what they could do with sequel or DLC or anything like that. I also don't know like within the Chinese video game space, I don't know anything about ultimately, apart from like, the big hits that are out there. So I have no idea if that industry is even, if that's something that's common over there.
Yeah,
or if they just like
that's a
jump
good
from game
point.
to game or how it goes.
That's a good. I hadn't even thought about that, but that is a good point of not even knowing how the industry handles sequels versus a new IP or something, or another one from culturally that they want to celebrate. What about you, Johnny? Do you imagine that a like a journey to the Wester will happen?
Yeah, I don't see where they would fit it. It's almost like they blew their entire thing on this, which is great. I love to see it. I hate the feeling when you feel like they purposely left a bunch out so that they could do a sequel.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's
Oh, yeah.
like,
Totally, yeah.
yeah, dude, like you're just trying to squeeze this thing. And I appreciate that they, for years, this is what they made. I would love to see different settings, maybe futuristic, but with the same combat, this type of stuff.
Oh, I could do a little
Technomancer,
I
but
could do a
really
little
good.
There you
Black
go.
Myth,
Yeah.
Black Myth, Cyberpunk. Like, give me that combination.
Ooh.
I could see some. That might take me to a couple of the games from Gamescom, but that's a different story. So,
Yeah,
Cyber augmented.
I
monkey.
think that we joke about this all the time because whatever Cyberpunk is now, it's not what it was going to be. But it's vastly improved, obviously. And I always bitch because I feel like that's for whatever reason, is a particular genre that it feels like is a gap. Like Ubisoft still hasn't hit it with like an Assassin's Creed futuristic. Nobody's hit it, and I'm always waiting for that one company to be like, okay, you know what, man. Or whether it be Prey 3 or so, like something like that where you're expecting, that's what I want. I want to see them jump to the future. But with Black Myth, I'll be the odd man out. Now that I think about it, though, I don't know about nationally if this is in the game industry. I feel, though, I feel that maybe if it was 3 or 4 million, it might be that. But it's at 10 million instantly. Like, it was ridiculous. And I'll
It's
just
a
tell you
huge
what.
signal, isn't it? It's
I'm a heathen, and I don't have a lot of like firm, solid beliefs. But even if nationally they were like, we don't do sequels, I'd be like, look at the sales. We're doing sequels now. It's the first time for everything.
Now we are.
We're there.
Yeah.
Black Myth Wukong Ni. And
Yeah.
let's just do
I
another
think
one.
what somebody said in chat was actually a good idea. They said Black Myth, and then you have Wukong, which
subtitle.
is Sun Wukong for the character.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Black Myth as something like a series of mythologies or stories. Because similar to the way, I don't want to spoil Lies of P, but Lies of P, the ending of Lies of P implies something very different.
Very different.
But very,
Yeah.
very intriguing. So if they did something along those lines, like, I'm all for that. 100%.
Yeah.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that, yeah.
Yeah. And the difference between this and like Lies of P is this is good. So
Oh, I enjoyed
Wow,
Lies
did you
of
not
P.
like Lies of
I
P at
enjoyed
all?
I did
Lies
not,
of P.
man. No,
Oh,
man.
man.
No,
I was a
couldn't
big
even,
fan of that game.
It was
too.
mostly, weirdly enough, they're both very linear in a way. And I don't know what it is, but the difference between Black Myth and that, probably organic, trees and leaves, which just fascinate me. I love the idea, probably because Pacific Northwest town. I have no clue why, but I love the idea of the forest, and starts out in a perfect area. Liza P just didn't grab me, like, from a world standpoint. It was
fair.
like there wasn't any, huge basis for me disliking. It's just one of those games that when you're busy, you look at it, you play it a little bit. I did the demo, which I gotta straight up say was terrible as a representation of the game. Almost every person I know who played the demo came out of it pretty negative, then played the game and was like, what the hell? This game is way better than the demo. So there was that too. I had done the demo and then pretty quickly rolled into the game. And I did feel the game was better than the demo, for
I
sure.
heard they actually changed, like, from the demo, they got feedback with, like, the timing of parries and iframe windows. Like, there was actually a change to the game. For me, it was, I have not played Bloodborne since I played it originally. And I've told myself, I'm like, I'm either never playing it again or I'm waiting until it, like, some version gets a little better looking and runs a little better.
Yeah.
ISP was the closest to what I like, a Bloodborne kind of setting and world with the kind of puppets and everything, because it had that darker, dreary kind of, but also, I don't know, just Victorian dark and dreary combination, which worked.
Some of the
it was
city
also
stuff.
Yeah, but also it was the fact that, like, the combat in Lies of P worked so well for me because after playing Sekiro, parries had become more of a thing. And I think the first time I got that parry perfect, the satisfaction of the way they did the animation and the visual feedback for parries, so well done in that. I think that was why it clicked so quick for me. As soon as the parries started working, I was like, oh, this feels
And the stagger,
good.
Dude, like, huge dopamine when you get
That
the
might
big,
be,
like,
that might be why Black Myth sold me, because as
It's all
somebody
dodge.
somebody who's in the middle, I like some and I don't like. I liked Surge because you tore people's arms off and you made other arms with them. I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like, that's my jam. But then you get these games that are like, here's a bunch of parries. Like Sekiro, I liked a lot, but it is based on that. It's just like, here's a game about parrying, right? And the great thing about Black Myth is they're like, what's a parry? What's a block, man? It's about a monkey with a staff. You're not blocking these guys with swords. You're dodging out of the way. And it was so refreshing to have a game balanced towards one defensive move. And that's why Black Myth to me feels so good, is when you do pull off and you leave a little shadow self as you pull off a perfect dodge. It's just like, that felt good. And dude, I mean, I think Neo was harder. There were times in Neo, but I never got frustrated. Neo, I think I had like 130 deaths against a guy because at the time I was reviewing, you couldn't hire anybody either because there was no online. So there was you couldn't get what are they, Revenants, I think, and which were the bad, which were PvP, and you couldn't get good guys either because nobody was playing. With this game, it just felt like also the opening is so nice because every person I know who plays a Dark Souls game always bitches about that first fucker who beats them to death. Like, no matter what, especially if they're trying to get in.
It's like the Sentinel in Elden Ring. He just sits there and wallops on you.
He does, but with Elden Ring, the great thing they did with Elden Ring is they left a gap of space so a person can think. Because as somebody who studies, like, all of the stuff that has to do with short and long and medium-term memory, the big thing is that you have to give somebody a moment to actually know what the hell they need to learn. And the Dark Souls prior to that were a little rough. Some other games have been rough, but Elden Ring did it well. And then this one, it's just the enemies, you can sort of smoke a couple of those. You might get hurt, but you're like, okay, I know what worked or what didn't. I'm going to try that on the next guy. And there's this really cool ramp up. And then you get to a boss, and depending on what you've learned, it might stymie you. But if it does, you can go, well, you know what? I did defeat these guys easier. I'm going to go back and farm them for a bit, learn a couple moves. There's an ease to Black Myth that a lot of these games just don't have. And I know a lot of people playing it who don't like the nut crunching difficulty. You know, they don't need to be out there saying, I beat him by using a touchpad, you know, or something like, or a dance pad. They're just happy to be able to get to the second level. And with Wukong, it's been great to see that, man. Even though some of those bosses, even in the first spot, it took me a couple tries where I was like,
oh.
And some of them you kind of have to problem solve with different abilities and different,
absolutely,
you know, like a stance that kind of plays in a slightly different way.
Or learning to not move. I was talking to people who would play late 8 hours. I was watching a stream and I realized nobody knew you could dodge in place. And to me,
dude,
a lot of the battles are
occurred.
way easier if you don't move and you just hit the dodge button, like the the cat guy, where you're just like, well, and instead of moving to get away, which then makes you have to run back, you can just dodge right out of the way and hit him at the legs and be like, oh, I'm doing way more damage by not, leaping far away. So those things are great, man. It's so cool to see a success like that. I love it because I mean, we'll bitch about games, but man, seeing something do well and seeing people excited about, like, waking up, having that review go, and then watching and seeing other people say it, and then it went live at the same time for me, and to see everybody so excited for it and playing it, even if they had tech issues, they were like, yeah, I got some stutter, but man, the big-headed dude Bonk from Bonk's Adventure was kicking my ass.
Everybody is using that.
Yeah. What do you guys have any? There's enough spirits in there to not be really a big deal with spoilers, and there's 60 plus bosses. Has there been any battle that, we don't have to say exactly what they look like, but has there been any battle that has been particularly like stand out or noteworthy to anybody in this yet?
I'm not super far. So
spirit, or you would say spirit or bosses?
It can be spirit or bosses. Just don't spoil the boss or where he is. Like
there
rock
is
guy.
I was gonna say there is a wind-related situation without saying too much.
I just got to that.
Yeah, I've heard that one every once in a while. Yeah.
I was gonna say that one definitely had me rethinking. That one took me. That's my longest one yet. So that was a couple hours working on him, trying to just adjust strategies and things. But it was also where to. It is smart because it makes you use your mana specifically. Because if you just spam the wrong things, you could waste some of it, not use it in the right places. The freeze, which seems broken, is not going to help you. Like it'll help you get a chunk, but it's not going to just totally break the game. So trying to decide, do I want to use this spell or this thing or this use of it, or conserve it for just maybe the bigger hits? And then also the wind related thing, without spoiling too much, it was also trying to understand when to chase and when not to chase.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be aggressive like I had kind of up to that point, and that actually worked better to be a little more passive to kind of read what he was going to do. He has one move that pissed me off so bad, though. Oh, I was getting angry.
Is it the grab? Because he's got like a weird grab.
It actually reminds me of Destiny 2, Rolk, if you fought that boss. It's the kick.
Yes, yeah. It is kind of like a grab, like if he, like an animation.
It's a kick, slam, spear thing, and it's just like every time he would get that on me, I was like, I swear I dodged. Obviously I didn't, but it felt like I did. So he had some stuff in there. That's an interesting one. And then I just got to, I'm on chapter 3 basically, but the spirits are interesting because the passives that they bring in, like the big head guy is going to be defensive.
Plus 20 to defense. It's great. Yeah.
But the attack that there's one that will charge and hit about 4 or 5 times as it charges. So, I mean, that thing will add up to be 400 or 500 points of damage. And it's just a nice one-off that I can use to close a gap, but also hit him pretty hard. And that one's actually been pretty beneficial too.
What about you, Johnny? Has there been any that have...
Yeah, I found one that enhances my damage. And so that's what I've been using. And as you upgrade the spirits, the effect, the passive effect also increases. So it starts off as slightly increasing your damage, and then it goes on to like moderately or whatever. And it's pretty noticeable because you're smacking the whole time, right? So adding like 1% to that makes a big difference. And I noticed that the mana economy thing is a big thing, like you were talking about, Bontis. I think actually Carrick pointed this out to me while I was playing in his Discord. He said, listen, dude, don't bother with that skill because like it's not doing anything to the tiger and you're wasting a bunch of mana. And I hadn't thought until then, like, oh, true. I can actually just choose to maybe spam one skill that's really good or that I've spec'd into. Because, for example, I've spec'd into the Immobilize. So that does a ton of damage.
Yep.
But the other stuff, calling a bunch of ghost monkeys, they whack a little bit at the boss, but they really don't do that much if you don't put points into it. So it's a really good resource.
JP, you are still in the first area. You've faced Bonk from Bonk's Adventure, I'm assuming?
Yeah. He was fine. I think I got him on like try 2 or 3. I was I stream it, so it's chat kind of tells me like, oh, you should go do blah 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 first. So I fought him before fighting, let's say, the fire guy.
Yeah,
if that
the
makes
fire guy.
sense.
We know, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And then,
That's what he's
yeah.
called generically for everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, true.
they're like, go fight the fire guy first, and then come back. And so I died like once or twice. Went and fought the fire guy, came back, and it was fine. I think the last boss I killed was the fish guy. Does that make sense? The 2-part fish guy, and he was
That's
Dark
Snake Guy.
Prince from Hellboy 2.
Snake
That's what he
Fucker
reminded
Boy.
me. That
he
is
looks very
exact-
much like
he
that.
does.
Snake
He
guy,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, Snake.
Yeah, that was 4 or 5 tries or something like that. I think the next boss might be the first wall. Might be the chapter 1 end boss. I don't know too
Probably.
much about it. I think it has 2 phases. I forget his name.
It does. I just call him the Drop Bear.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
big-
so
big
it's
bear.
funny. Drop Bear, that fucking Macho Man Randy Savage elbow dropping piece of shit. Like, I played man, and I wasn't looking close enough, and I didn't grab a bunch of spirits, so I faced him with nothing, and I did defeat him after a ton of fights, and it was ridiculous. And he is like, I mean, the thing about this game too that I really do enjoy is if you do really well against him, they'll go into a different form you won't see normally. So there's sort
Yeah,
of these
I heard about
aggressive,
that.
yeah, there's like these weird aggressive forms that just occasionally pop up that you're like, what's he doing? What is he doing now? And so I would get really good, I'd go in, and then he'd change everything, or at least he would use moves he hadn't used as much, which would then kill you right away because you hadn't learned. You're like, what is going on? I don't know what these are. Then he, lights himself on fire, lights the buildings on fire. He's like, just fuck this particular area in space. And I was like, oh my God. And then
Yeah.
I got all the way past him and realized, I was like, well, there's this guy on the first level. I'm going to go back. And I went back and I defeated him and he dropped a spirit. And I was like, oh, I thought maybe it was just level 1 had no spirits. I was, just playing. I was paying attention, but I just didn't see the glowing spirit. I just moved off and didn't see it glowing behind. You know how the camera sort of pans back to you? I guess
Yeah.
most of the time mine was panning with the spirit behind me. So I just was like, da 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 da. And there's a spirit in the middle of the road that I had killed the guy earlier. And then I grabbed it and was like, oh, you're kidding me. I could have used this. And then Bonk can't hit worth shit. I love him. But that dude's windup is like,
It's pretty slow wind up. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
and
why
even
I
in
like
my
the
review, I
charge, the one
teased my
that I've got.
accuracy with it because I just had so many hours of my video where I'm like, boom, and the guy's already passed me. Boom, and the guy's already passed me. And I was like,
Yeah.
but it looked so cool. I was like, screw it. I'm just going to keep pulling this off. It was, that's the thing is frustration versus, true, like feel by cheated by
Anger.
the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you,
Yeah.
and I get where Ebontis is coming from, where you say, oh, I obviously dodged, and there's some micro timing and micro stutter issues that certainly do happen, but I think for the most part, those probably don't happen during that specific, and even if they do, you've still got the input in there. Most of the time it was on me. They have some,
it's a fair game. I agree.
it is fair, except for the Drop Bear guy likes to spin around like the Sekiro piece of shit ogre that you face
Yeah.
that would do a jump kick and flip in the air and come back and hit you.
Oh,
And by the
yeah,
way,
that-
From Software, I hate you for that character.
That ogre boss was a pain in the ass. I remember that. Yeah.
That I have a note in my reviews and it's got a generic drawing of an ogre that looks terrible. And I got a line through it and I said, can I even review this in time? Because I just kept, and I ended up catching him on a tent pole that there's a corner up in the edge where there's like a tent
Yeah.
and some fencing and he got caught. And I just was like, it's on, Donkey Kong. And I kicked his ass. And then after that, it was such a skill gap for me, not on purpose, but because I had fought him so much that all my other skills and my timing were great. And I had no
Yeah.
issues. But that guy was just like, damn.
Yeah, the collision head of his grabs were like
Oh, come on.
tomahawk.
And he'd throw you off the
like-
cliff. You'd get him
Yeah.
down to one and he'd grab you and be like, ha, and you'd be like, oh, dude, seriously? I mean, I remember just being so frustrated. But with this one, there's been times where I'm just like, okay, yeah, didn't do it in time, didn't do this in time. But then you play it. The only other thing I have with this game is the invisible walls are noticeable and
Yeah,
and they crop up a lot. They
Yeah.
crop up a lot.
especially because people told me, right? Oh, this game has a lot of secrets. So I find myself scanning. Dude,
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's that
like,
mindset.
scanning areas, and you just notice how many of the corners are not like, it's a small rock, but you can't jump on top of it because
Mhm.
there's a wall there. This type of stuff. So you do
Yeah.
notice that. Yeah.
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 That's kind of one of those where whatever they say, they black myth insert next subtitle mythology game. That's the type of stuff I would like to see them polish. Is
Absolutely.
maybe let me jump up on a couple more ledges, you know,
Yeah.
just to do a little exploration and know that it's not there. Maybe as I'm running down a path to this boss fight for the 50th time, this rock in the path isn't actually in my way. Just work on the boundaries, work on. But I mean, when I'm in the middle of combat and I can get a boss's health halfway down because I'm getting a good run, I'm like, this is on me. I finally figured this out. It feels fantastic, and that's the biggest thing is like when I'm in the middle of a boss fight and combat's like clicking, the dodges are good. You can get the triple back and forth little wisp show up, and you just get the slam over the top, and it's those moments that all come together that feel good. And then I'm like, I basically the other parts of the game, it's like there's a main path and there's a fork in the road, and either forks back, or it's a loop and you'll go back to where you were. Everything else is pretty straightforward. That's how I described it to a buddy because he did the same thing. He fought the bonk guy, found the spear guy. He's like, well, this feels like a progression of a boss because this feels better. And then he was like, well, where do I go now? And I was like, just go back, go like split the uprights. And then he went like 3 bosses later. So it's like there's
everything
a fork in the
game
road.
Circles back. Like
Yeah.
or it ends and you can be I never got lost.
Yeah, there's
once.
a dead end.
There's usually a dead end, and I just am like I always do in games like that. I just keep turning right until I'm either back at the space I started from or it stops, and then I can go back and try it again. The only time the invisible walls do affect you, and they absolutely do, is a mini boss who's a frog, and it's in the second. It's in the desert level, and he's in a pool of water, and you couldn't get out. Like in 90% of the pool of water, and when he's dropping electricity, tonguing you, leaping, doing back leg attacks, and you're just like, what
Somebody clip that
shit? And and you're trying to leap out, and you're rubbing up against stuff just consistently. That was actually very frustrating from a technical. When I was reviewing it, I was like, okay, that needs to be. You know, they need to have some of this movable, or one thing is graphically, they've made it so that everything far away looks really good, and that's the nanite technology and all the stuff that we've always stated was good in games in Unreal. The new adjustments they've made. The problem is they need a little depth of field blur far away. They need some stuff to make it look like I can't go there or I can't do this, to make it a little bit easier to parse. And this is one of the things that's happening. We're finally getting to the point to where, you know, Todd. Thank God for Todd saying, you see that mountain, you can go there. And everybody's like, not on Black Myth, I can't, you know, but they try. And I think some level design chops on their part, whether it be ramparts, little things that they can put up to indicate this isn't a climbable spot. It may look climbable, but it's not. So don't, in the middle of a battle, think I'm just going to run away. And also, fuck the archers. By the way,
oh, thank you. I was about to say the same thing.
I've heard the archers suck. I've only ran into that first
literally
one on the bridge.
chapter 2. All of a sudden, I'm like,
yes.
How do I do this? This is I'm getting, because there's a point where there's archers.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Archers pegging, like, not wrong word choice there. I was about to say pegging you, so we're just gonna have all of them in here today. No, but they're shooting you from up high. But then there's these rats that are like, they're a one-off fight because when you beat them, they don't come back. They're that kind of fight, and there's a couple of them next to each other, and you either have to draw them way back, which the follow distance on the guys in this game is actually longer than I expected. Which
it
can help actually, depending on what you do. But that's kind of how I had to do that. But it's also there are a couple spirits that are ranged, but they're still one-off, so you're not going to really take it out. You have to run around and jump on a roof, and I'm like, that is probably my one biggest thing in that little area. Was like, because they're both sides, they're all the way. The range.
Are you talking about the mountain climb before the bear?
Yes.
Dude. So I think I died twice, and then I jumped up and I looked, and luckily they have a great draw distance for enemies. And so I just looked and was like, fuck it. And I just ran past everybody and then went to the top temple, saved there. And I never, ever went down. I even missed a spirit that's down there because I was like, I'm not going back down.
Did you get the giant rat spirit that's over there?
I didn't get the, wait, did I? Maybe I did get there. Maybe you can get them in multiple places, maybe, if you kill. So I got it.
Because it's the first place you find there's an archer up here, 2 on a ridge. And it's like where the 2 double-headed rat guys were, and if you follow all the way to the left through some of the structures, eventually the rats.
I think I did. I think I did.
Yeah,
so maybe
that's the spirit I've been using, and was like an annoying. Yeah, because he will actually do that full, like, he'll cover a lot of ground, hit a couple times, and he's done. He's short-lived and very actually helpful, but no, to get to him, absolute pain in the ass. Absolute pain in the ass.
Guys, and it's like I like that they reload. I mean, I'm saying that as somebody who's archery 100 for 30 years. I can say I know that makes no sense, but I do like that they have they get about 7 or 8 shots off, and then they have a pause. But I'm telling you right now, man. I mean, Olympic archers would look at these guys and be like, "Dude, what?" And then there's 4, and then they're in the desert area. There's this one space you go to, and they're so far away. And the moment the guy comes running, you just hear,
Yes.
and you're all,
attack
"Oh
speed,
no,
dude. Pew, pew,
no.
pew.
Yeah,
Huh.
Yeah, that one I know you're talking about when you actually go the reverse direction. They're not there.
that's what I did. That's what I did. I ended up, and that's the other thing I like about the game is just even hearing you guys talk about it, and this is great in any game, is when there are slight differences. There's a way to get to a boss that I found in that area that I just skipped them all. I used the stealth skill. There's way more stealth in this, or the ability to do stealth in this, than I ever expected. So when you get the, you get this a power of like basically making a mimic of yourself, and you're invisible for that time. Once I got that, the gameplay dramatically changed because I was
didn't
able
think
to
about using that way.
I use it as stealth. So like if
That's
the
awesome.
double-headed ogres came by, and I was like, I told Johnny I was like, Johnny, watch out, because those guys just are relentless. And so what I was doing there was I was just going into the shadows basically, and then going up on a ridge, looking at everybody, then basically letting it wear off, killing some guys up there, looking around, trying to figure it out. And I ended up finding out doors, everything can be interacted with once you're out of the spirit. So I would kite them over, use it, and then run past them to the door and wait until I became real, open the door, and I'd be like, I'm not messing with these little bastards anymore. And it worked. I like that. I like that, people can do whatever they want. There's a lot of secrets in it too. I saw a secret yesterday that I was like, how in the hell is somebody
I've seen like the invisible wall of the game is very different, but it's also exactly what you just said. How do you find that out? Like how do you know to do a heavy bonk thing here?
There's one of those, like a breakable wall.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no, I haven't seen that yet.
And it doesn't like it doesn't do the Dark Souls thing where the wall disappears. It just like puts a small crack in the wall.
Yeah.
So it's not even like fully aware that you can do that. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't realize this game was going that direction.
Yeah,
but
it's
cool.
definitely got a couple of those. It's got a couple items things too. Go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Visually, the wall is a little bit out of place when you look at it.
It is a little bit out of place compared to everything else.
Compared to everything else. So I think that's how they're trying to make you suspect it, and you can get the boss to break it too instead, if you don't use the head, which is maybe what they wanted you to do, but
or you might have been bonk and used it to fight the boss and done it on accident, and they just, it's okay. I'm not against those surprises. To me,
not at all.
That's sort of the magic of
that
it.
would be really cool, actually, if you discover it mid-fight, like,
yeah. And I do like that bosses can screw up other, I'll just say things. There's stuff that bosses can do that interact that I was like, oh, okay. This is
even
not a
the
closed-off
archers
area.
can hit other enemies.
Yep.
So
cool.
what I did
happened.
too is, if I'm fighting a melee guy and there are archers, I would position between them. Yeah. And they tank the arrows for you. So
Wait,
it's something
you positioned yourself between 2 archers and they killed each other?
No. So there are archers in the back, melee guy in the front.
Okay, gotcha.
And I place myself between them so that the arrows are hitting the melee guy.
I want to jump in the game now and get 2 archers though.
I know you just said that. Now
I'm sitting there going, man, that could be a viral video.
I saw you do like 1+1 in your head.
If I had any energy or ability whatsoever, I'd do a viral video on that. Anybody who's watching, feel free to, because you know me, I'm gonna forget about it. Bakovic says, yeah, the boss broke that wall for me.
Oh,
okay.
I don't think I thought that. What? I'm trying to think what.
It's in
It's
in the desert area. Down.
Okay, then maybe that boss did that for me too, then, because it was just there. Because I think I know what you're talking about.
There's like a wall that breaks the wall and it puts the video that I've seen, I haven't done it. It puts a little crack at the bottom, and then Wukong slides.
Yeah.
through
There's like
it
a
type
small.
deal.
So this is the point where there's a small guy talking to a big guy.
That's the one.
Okay. Yeah. So that was just when I got done. I was like, oh, what's this wall? And walked over to it. That was
there you
was
go.
already done.
That's cool.
So it was already taken care of.
I think personally, I know that this is something that is just, for whatever reason, is my problem with dubs and subs. I don't like to look down and have to read a subtitle all the time, so I played it in English and Chinese both for the review. But I don't understand Chinese, even though I'm married to my wife who is, Chinese. And I don't understand, so I can't tell you if it's really good. I felt it was emotional enough. Like I was watching it, I was listening to it going, okay, that's emotional enough. It feels like there's some emotion there. But when I switched it to English, I personally have to say, no one else seems to like this but me. I actually like the main, monkey, because he's not what I expected. He isn't like the Final Fantasy blowhard go-getter. He's like, we're going to go do it, guys. He's like, knuckleheads. And he's just this piece of shit guy talking.
Yeah.
I liked his voice. I know other people didn't, but when you jump into the main game, really either language, I actually thought the voiceovers were way better than I expected, because I do play a lot of games from other non-English speaking as a primary language. You get those voiceovers that they don't make sense, or there's something a little hinky with the verb structure in particular. And I gotta say, man, I mean, the guy who helps you, the guy who looks like he needs a serious demusking,
the tiny guy,
the little tiny guy, that dude needs some trims. I really liked all of the voices. I was actually surprised, because I play a lot of games where they might be from the West and you're like, damn, seriously.
It did throw me off at one. Like I've enjoyed all the voice work. I think it's like well done. It's just some of the accents I'm not prepared for when I walk into a certain area, and then all of a sudden I feel like Scottish or Irish guys screaming at me for some. It seems like that kind of comes into it at one point, and I was like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
but I listened to both because I saw, I think it was a short or something, and I saw the difference of the opening, and they're close, but even the English, like the cackle of the monkey sounds a little higher pitched than I expected to start off, but it also fits because a monkey's not going to be like a gorilla.
Right.
It's a monkey.
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of worked for me in the same way, but I listened to the Chinese and I feel like that still has some of that weight, where it's like, if you ever seen like The Boys with like, listen to the Japanese version of The Boys or something, that's a hilarious thing to watch for a second, but same idea. Like both are actually pretty good.
Yeah, I was really impressed. It was very nice, because that does become sometimes contentious, where it's like, oh, you need to listen to it and just this. And a lot of people don't want to play an action game, especially in this game where guys talk to you a lot when you're in battle. Yeah. I don't want to go, what's he saying? Oh, and then get hit. I mean, in all honesty, I'm in the middle of the battle. So especially at the starting, I played in English, then switched. So I sort of knew the combat systems. That way, if somebody did say something, that's the other thing. As somebody who reviews audio in games, I got to tell you guys, I'm so impressed that many of the bosses will not always shout or talk to you on the same exact moment of a move. There's one particular boss that'll go like, haha, and then attack, or he'll attack and at that time go, haha, or he'll do it after when he hits you. And it's so nice to have somebody change it up, so that I was like, wait, what? He made that sound prior. It sounds like such a stupid thing, but as somebody who's like always listening for little tiny adjustments,
I thought less predictable.
It was less predictable. And especially when they're far off and you're thinking, oh, I'll just wait till I hear that and then I'll move. Even though technically, as fast as those guys move, they're moving faster than the speed of sound,
but
apparently.
They on the flip side of that, they had some really good tells for attacks. Like, for example, sometimes they will do like a little pop right before they will attack you, or there's a little glow. There for some of the big attacks, there's always something like that helps you visually to understand, like,
absolutely,
when the windup is about to go. And I thought that was a good way of showing you and not making it super telegraphed, but help you out.
It's really interesting. I feel like the From Software reign on kind of these games that existed for so long, probably through like Dark Souls 3, is because we're getting like Lies of P and Neo and now Wukong. Like we're getting to the point where the distance between a From Software game and another Souls-like is starting to close.
Yep.
And so Elden Ring obviously is Elden Ring, right? But like we're getting to the point where pretty much everything's like kind of comparable. That's when I think it gets really exciting, because it's going to force From Software to be like, shit, we're not on the tippy top anymore. We got to do something new. We got to try some new stuff. So I'm excited for just like that genre in general. We get more great games like Wukong. I thought Lies of P was great. I'm a big Neo fan.
Forgotten Lords or Lords of the Fallen? Sorry.
Yeah, Lords of the Fallen was good. Stellar Blade, like all of those are, I think, in a good spot. And so now with Wukong's success, I'm hoping whatever is next, like they keep kind of going back and forth with upping the ante a little bit in terms of the combat.
Like there's a couple I'm looking at. First Berserker, Kazan is one. And then Crimson Desert potentially has another. There's a couple that just we'll get to Gamescom and talk about. But it is nice to see, as you said, like it's not a pyramid where like From Software's up there. It's getting to be a little wider at the top where there's more room for people to have quality combat, but still challenge kind of what they're doing. So no, competition's always good.
For my interest too, I think Wukong is one of it's in the talk, I guess, is how I would frame it to not get dismantled too quick. But it's in the talk of like one of the best looking games I've seen. It's running it at 4K with like everything maxed out. The FPS is still a little low, right? Like you're still having to rely on DLSS 3 and all that stuff to push it forward a little bit above 100. But man, when you're just like standing there and you look at the trees and like all the lens shaft coming through and the constant shadows around you, and like you just twirl the freaking staff, it's a pretty good looking game.
Yeah.
What
the
I
animations
noticed too,
are.
man,
Oh, go ahead.
like, sorry, I was gonna say, like when you walk around and you're stepping on the leaves and the leaves are like popping up.
Totally.
And some of those like dynamic effects with the water too look fantastic.
So I gotta ask, are you guys playing on 4000 series or what are you on?
I'm on a 4090, yeah.
4090.
Johnny?
I'm the
Johnny's
only one.
3080.
No, I'm on a 3090.
I'm on a 3090 as well, so I did not turn on ray tracing.
Okay.
I turned it on for like maybe one of the benchmarks just to see, and the look of difference in the water is fantastic. So I would love to kind of see that in the frame generation for a little bit of it. But oh damn it, what was I going to say about that? It was more just the difference. So it was an example walking towards Wind Dude from the shrine. There's literally a point I can watch, and it's like the baked lighting. If it's not ray tracing, the baked lighting will change from like one package, walk a foot to another package, and it's a really hard transition sometimes that you know.
Okay.
Yeah, those were some of the. That's another piece of like, game 2 polish, smooth out, however you transition that a little better. Sometimes the lighting and balance is a little much, but the jumps are noticeable sometimes. I mean, but that's like, I'm still having fun playing the game. I overlook it, but you do kind of catch the big light pop for moments that you don't expect it.
Also, as like when you look at screen space and in particular how it does reflections, if you can't see it in the screen, you're not going to see the reflections, stuff like that. I personally believe the best looking games are ones that are authored really well for non-ray tracing, and then they have ray tracing on it. With ray tracing, even on this, there's a huge shadow cascade you see pretty easily where you can see things drawn in. So there is it's not perfect in either side. I also played a bunch non-ray traced because I have a Legion. I played it on the Legion a bunch. I think I defeated 6 or 7 bosses playing on the Legion. And that was, even on low and medium, it was ridiculous. It's like Control. I like Control with ray tracing, sure. But there are times where I'm playing Control where I'm like, you know what, man, this is authored really well. And that's why I like companies who don't just sit on ray tracing. They're like, hey, we're going to show you a reflection. Or that you can use it, let's say, in a game. For example, I know in Spider-Man with ray tracing on, there were many times in battles in the middle of buildings, I'd see an enemy behind me in the reflection and be like, whoa, that guy's behind me. That's unbelievable. That's a next level. Totally. It's why I always talk about 3D audio in a fight. If you can hear the guy behind you getting ready to do an attack, you're like, okay, that's why audio is important. Ray tracing could be important. Right now, it's a little bit about how much makeup you can put on. And I like it, but I got to tell you, if anybody doesn't have ray tracing, it's not the end of the world. I think
you're not missing too much. Yeah, I fiddled with the graphics. I agree with you. Like, I don't know. I'm sure Digital Foundry might have went into it, but I don't know what the PC equivalent of like what's running on the PlayStation is. If it's like low or medium,
it is low and mediums. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the PS5 version still looks fantastic, right? Yeah. So the game's still gonna look good, kind of on every graphic setting, which I think is a win. Like that's in the plus column. So you don't necessarily have to have like that the 4090 to push everything at ultra, or I guess it's cinematic in this one is their setting. But
And cinematic is broken, just so everybody knows.
yeah, you're
Oh,
supposed to play
really?
on very high, right?
Play it on
That's
very
the-
high. Yeah, cinematic is
Yeah.
for cinematics, and I don't know why it's on, but we're talking 30 FPS in some areas when a long draw distance. But yeah, and that's the thing is animations and design play out regardless of even your frame rate for looking at the beauty of something. I saw that with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, where I was like, listen, this frame rate's a little hinky. Its resolution's sharp enough to kill you. Like that thing's like 4P. You know, at times you're just like, damn. But the design is what matters, and that's what you see. At least when I'm playing this, I see design that is for the first time in a long time, and probably reminds people of Bloodborne in the design element, where it looked different enough to capture them and go, whoa, versus, let's say, medieval Dark Ages, which is your Dark Souls. And for me, caught me with Surge, where I was like, oh, this is a gritty, futuristic thing. Like, this is different. So, and I agree, JP, with like the competition, man, it's not just from, like you said, it's those other companies that look and go, okay, what if we, maybe we do dodge and parry next time. We don't have to have every single thing. We don't have to have all these builds. Maybe we can like pare it down so it's a little. And I got to tell you, as a reviewer, boy, do I get tired of hearing it's a blah 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 Dark Souls, and a lot of times I pass it up. I'm like, if you're mentioning Dark Souls, I'm probably going to look at it a lot longer to decide if I want that game, because they require, there's a skill thing there that, it's like a lot of times you're eating up time where you're like, I don't even know if this is going to pay off in the long run or be enjoyable in the long run. Deathbound was that way, where there was a lot of good ideas in that game. But boy, you can, as JP is somebody who like does Dungeons and Dragons, if you have a group of people, they have a good idea, but if you have a DM that can't put it together, you're like, well, those were good ideas. They sounded good when we were all talking at the bar, but this sucks now. Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's just really cool to see, and the excitement of it. Like, there's something I get so excited because it's so easy to get down, because there's so many things that I do want to change. So many things I'm like, Jesus, why do we do that? Or why are people doing this? And then you get a game that everybody's excited about, even if they can't play it and they wanted to. I know that sounds weird, but the idea that somebody's excited about the same thing, there's a common ground that isn't you're mad about the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of gaming right now is
that's a lot of the conversation is just everyone's upset.
Yeah,
I'm much more in
welcome
favor
to
of
the internet, right?
Yeah, I'm much more in favor of like, hey, this is pretty fun, let's celebrate that type deal.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about I almost called it Dark Souls, about Black Myth before we move on?
How long did y'all's play through for? Are you the only one that's finished it?
I'm the only one
I've
that's
not,
finished it here.
Yeah.
Okay, how long have you guys put in it then? Because I'm just curious about like average length. I've heard like 50 to 60 hours.
If you're asking me, it was 55 but I went back.
Okay.
And then went forward again, because I wanted to go back and get guys I had missed and all that kind of stuff. But you can definitely see, that's the thing. I don't know about you guys, and feel free, you guys can actually answer. The time thing is a little confusing to me, because it also depends on if you skip a bunch of those side bosses.
Your main story, so to speak.
Yeah. But
if you golden path it. Yeah.
How far are you guys, and how far are you, and then how long has it taken you guys?
So, for example, I'm in at the end of chapter 2, and I have 11.3 hours.
Yeah, it's like I'm in chapter 3 at a noticeable boss, but I also had the game open for a while making a video, so it's kind of skewed. So that's kind of hard to know. I don't know if it's like 15. It says 20 right now, but it's probably somewhere in the realm of like 15 of me actually playing. So, I mean, but I've heard, 35, 40. I can see 50 if you're going through, like I did, take 2 hours or 3 hours on one boss fight. Like I think it's going to vary, but 40 to 60, depending on skill, exploration, all that stuff sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Anyway, we'll move on from there. We're going to talk a little bit about Gamescom, and I'm sure somehow I'll mention Black Myth again, because that's just the way I do things. But we're going to jump into this. There is a huge list of games that they showed, and I just told these guys we'd just talk about them generally, and any games that they thought like maybe caught their eyes or they were excited about. Let's talk before that. Let's talk a little bit about Starfield. So you missed the embargo or you did the embargo early 10 minutes, but they added the car. Yep. Has anybody played the car?
I played it yesterday it was about 3 hours. Two of it was sponsored for, disclosure or whatever, but Yeah, the car is a car. You get around faster. It's fun to play in low grav. Like, it's not. Apart from that, it's still Starfield at the end of the day. If you haven't played since launch of Starfield, the game from a performance point of view is a lot better. I was pulling like 140, 130 at everything maxed at 4K yesterday. That's with DLSS and all that stuff turned on. So performance-wise, it's a lot better, but it's still Starfield. I think a lot of people are hoping that expansion, I think, is next month. Is going to deliver the experience that they want that's a little bit more confined, kind of on a single planet or multiple single planets, something like that. I haven't dove too much into it. But yeah, it's a car. And the cool thing about that is with one of the creation stuff, which is their like mod service that's in game, you just go back to the main menu, click on creation. There's already mods for the car, so there's already mods that give it full boost. So like the boost never runs out. And there's for some reason, and this was a really weird thing to encounter while doing a sponsored stream from Bethesda themselves. I put like a ton of Star Wars mods in the game from the creation engine, and one of them is that you could turn the car into the land speeder that like Luke drives. And it's fully realized and fully rendered. It looks exactly like the Star Wars land speeder. So
that's impressive.
And I was rolling around in like the full Mando outfit. And so I've had a little bit weird doing that for a sponsored stream. But yeah, the car's fun. It's really fun getting into low grav because it responds as you would expect that would. And it has a bottom boost and a back boost. And so if you need to get away and you're on a low grav planet, like a moon or whatever, you hit both of those and you'll just go flying. There's a sky cap. And with the unlimited boost, I kind of turned it in. It's the car has a, I think it's like a mounted laser gun, essentially. And so I kind of turned it into just like a flying assault vehicle, which I'm sure modders will do a much better job of in the future. Or even, Bethesda could go down that road if they want to. But yeah, it sounds so simple being like, hey, I did a car to Starfield, but it does make a pretty significant difference.
The main thing I was worried about is how the car connects with the surface, and if it was going to be really janky in how, when you drive and you go through, rocks and all this type of stuff.
It got stuck on a couple of things. Like it got stuck on some of the trees are not necessarily like, how do I describe it? Like a tree branch is a block, not a branch, if that makes sense.
Collision detection wise.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll just like hit a block or hit a tree that's a rock. Well, it's visible, but it's not like the branch that you're running into, right? It's like
it's a rectangle almost.
Yeah. It's really strange in that regard. And also some of the NPCs, like you can ride around in the cities in a car. But a lot of those NPCs, when you run into them, if they are, I don't know how it distinguishes between like
important versus not
an important or a NPC that you can fight or something. You'll just run into like a brick wall when you hit the NPC.
Right. Yeah.
And some of them you'll run through, and so like that's kind of strange as well. Like you can run over NPCs that you can fight, and it'll do a little bit of damage and knock them down. But if it's just like a story NPC, you just hit a like brick wall, and it's really strange when that happens.
Does it have inventory?
No, but there's a mod that you can put inventory on it right away. That was one of the first things I looked for.
Man, yeah. It's been a while since I played, but oh man, that inventory.
We stream it. There's almost always somebody in our Discord streaming that, including myself, because I still play it all the time. Especially it's a good podcast game where I just No Man's Sky I really like, but the combat is just ass in that game when you're on the ground, and so I have a hard time being interested in it. Where Starfield sort of flipped, where the exploration is not as good, but the combat, I like it, especially with mods. You can get that sort of dialed in and have a good time while you listen to a podcast. I've really enjoyed that. But the inventory, because I am a pack rat, I never leave any building ever with anything ever.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you play those games.
That's how you play the game. So I'm going 1 mile an hour back to base because my character's just so laden down with shit. So the idea of having a little bit of inventory is there is good. I saw a mod that turns it into the Scooby-Doo van.
Oh, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff.
Dude,
yeah,
it's like the white questionable van, you know,
Yeah.
for the
Oh,
jokes on the
gosh.
internet. So yeah,
Yep.
and I was looking at it going, this is great. The you know, you were talking about doing a sponsored stream for this, but I do believe that Bethesda knows, like, those mods are there, and that is, it's weirdly enough, it's like, okay, we'll deliver skeletons and then we'll deliver DLC. And they've got some amazing DLC for some of their games. Far Harbor's incredible. Shivering Isles might be one of the best DLCs ever made. So you have these amazing DLCs. But they've never really shied away from being like, if a creator put it in, you know, go for it. And Xbox having mods has really changed some things, man. I have people in there who are running, you know, mods that make it look prettier, even though I actually don't have too much of an issue with that game and how it looks. I think the lighting engine in particular is good. But yeah, the idea of having that is awesome to me. I don't know how much I'll use. I need to also see the interaction of rocks and how it, because I am
it
one
is
of those,
a little like
is it
rigid.
a little,
Let's go with that. Rigid
Rigid.
is a good way to describe it.
okay. Well, that's good.
I wouldn't
to
say
know.
janky. I would just say, like, if there's a rock in front of you and you hit the rock, it's like you stop like very
Okay.
quickly.
Yeah.
The rock doesn't budge type deal.
I've always
Yeah.
wondered if ignoring all the other, you know, ways in which it creates a lane, I've always wondered if that's why the vehicle wasn't in there, you know, right away. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you say it's a barren landscape, people see the moon and they're like, it's flat. And you're like, no, it's not. Go look. There's
Yeah.
rocks everywhere. You know, there are places where there aren't, but there's a ton of places where there's enough that, you know, you got to watch out for where you're going. And then, you know, it is a video game. So some of those places have these unbelievable scenic moments that you can jump up to. But the idea of trying to get a car up there. On the other hand, I saw people already trying to get cars to weird spots.
Oh, dude, the first thing I did, I went to Neon, which is the like the planet is all water. So first thing, you can just dive off into the water and the car kind of like becomes a boat a little bit. It doesn't have like full speed, but you can definitely drive around. The second thing, since it has boosters, I got the mod where you had unlimited boosters, and I just got on top of Neon. And the craziest thing was, it wasn't a mod, it was built, it was like put in there. On the very tippy top of Neon, there's a little platform on the roof. And the developers literally put stuff to loot up on
Up
the
there.
very top of that thing.
Yeah.
Which it blew my mind. Like, someone was like, someone's eventually going to get up here. We're going to go
Yeah,
and just
somebody's
put like,
going to figure this out.
here's
you
a
know?
coffee cup and like some meat or something that the pack rats can
The
collect.
last worker up there who's building on the construction left
Yeah.
his sandwich out, and since
Yeah,
you know there's
yeah.
barely any oxygen, it just hasn't gone
It's just
bad.
that's the type of stuff you're like, all right, that's pretty cool, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy that stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, like, it's a car.
And this is free,
it's-
right?
It's completely free. Yeah, as long as you bought the game. It's free in terms of our money. In game, you have to go to a technician, and it's 25,000 credits.
That's
And
not
then once you buy it, whenever you land, the car is like right outside your ship, and then you can
Oh,
just
so
jump
you
in.
don't get to
okay.
like park it or anything inside your
Yeah,
ship? it
there's
just-
no there's nothing inside of your ship, or there's no like
Okay.
mechanic area. You can't alter anything in the car. It just kind of like loads into the planets with you.
It
and you
feels
just
like
jump
that would
into it.
be just knowing, because that's, I mean, where I did a lot of modding when I was younger. Trying to get every ship to have a place for that car would be
It'd be a nightmare.
insanity. In fact, I'm blown away when that trailer played. They were in the city. And as somebody who has messed with the old check mark of an important NPC versus not, basically one you can kill or one you know, I was looking at it going, what the? They're just letting them drive around in the city? Like, what the hell? But they were also
Yeah.
in Paradiso doing there's a part where they're in Paradiso in the trailer, like swirling around on the beach. And I was like, dude, okay, that actually
yeah.
looks fun. I would
I
actually
played for
do
like
that.
3 hours, and it was fun just driving around. Like,
That's
it's-
cool.
And low grav makes it all the more fun, right? Because if you boost, you keep that boost momentum even when you're not boosting. So as long as the unfortunate thing is, planets have like a we were talking about
Yeah,
invisible
it's like
walls.
a cell cap. Yeah.
There's like a cap, yeah, that it's like hits and it won't let you boost anymore.
Right.
But that's still like, I don't know, in game you're still very, very, very high,
Yeah.
above everything else. So
When you were playing it, would you say then more like Halo Warthog? That's
Yes,
what I
totally.
heard was okay. Gotcha.
yeah, I think a lot of viewers were also saying like Mako from Mass Effect.
Oh, okay.
The set of controls a little bit like that as well, because it has a like turret on it. I guess the Warthog does as well, but yeah, it was interesting.
Ebontis, are you doing stretches? What the fuck are you doing?
No, sorry. No, my foster husky just walked in here. I was going to see if she showed up on camera, but it took her out. So.
Oh, gotcha. You look like you look like you were T-posing. I thought maybe you had crashed. Your executable
I just crashed. Yeah.
Moving on from there to talk a little bit about the Shattered Space expansion. So that's September 30th, I believe, or something to that effect.
I think that's the date. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds right.
And then, yeah, they say they don't want to spoil anything, but if you played the game, you look at something, you're like, I know where that is, or I know what this is about. Overall, I think that they have indicated that there's at least one massive planet that's or location that is specific to that. And then we know the character that's going to be involved, one of your companions. And it's going to be, this is way after a spoiler date, so we won't, but you have your endgame pluses, which change everything. My endgame plus, I don't know where she is.
Yeah.
I think I lost her somewhere, man.
I was like, she was my companion, but yeah, I was like, I don't know.
But I jumped in. My saved game where I jumped in with that car was basically a brand new game, and even doing that, I was still like, what the hell is I haven't touched this game in like 9 months. I don't remember a damn thing.
Yeah. So
so it's going to be weird with the expansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just I guess maybe it'll be interesting to see how they announce it. That they've done it before though, where they you get whether it be a pop up or you get something that's like, hey, there's this new thing happening. They're pretty good with also realizing that you might as well just warn, even if it's out of the fiction, you might as well just warn the player the DLC is installed. Because if you don't and the person's looking around and it didn't install right, they may not know, that kind of stuff. So I assume we're just going to get a blurb of some kind, whether, and
someone will walk up to you or something like that.
Here's the thing that's happening, guys, if you want to go do that. And maybe that character or something will talk to you and sort of try to push you towards it. Hopefully not push you as hard as some of those characters did in some of their quests where they're like, I am not leaving your side until we go and talk to my dad. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about your dad. I couldn't, I'm loading an older save game. I'm like, I'm going to find where your parents are and I'm going to make sure we can't find your dad. I'm going to hide his body.
That's what New Game Plus is for.
That is.
Sticky some of them.
I'm excited
like the little girl telling me about her books and like,
oh man.
Her dad and stuff, and I tried to leave her in different places, but
she would never go. She's always in my ship. She hasn't left in months. And I'm like, dude, your dad, I feel creepy. I'm this, 46-year-old bearded guy, like talking to the kid on my ship. And I'm like, dude, would you leave? Your dad's gone.
The charm, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, regardless, it actually is one of the things I always expect from their games is uncomfortable weirdness to happen. Because so many weird things can happen that things are just going to add up.
Yeah, from the point of the expansion, I played the entire base game because mods didn't really exist, right? Because the game just came out. I played without mods. And now, like yesterday and even when that creation stuff was added, I think like 3 months ago, I just added a bunch of Star Wars shit. So I've got I've got Twi'leks walking around. I've got like Imperial Guardsmen walking around. I've got Greedo walking like... Rhodians or it's all there, right? I don't know what I'm gonna do when the expansion comes out. I guess I'm gonna have to start a new game because I can't go and turn all those off because it's built into the save. And when you load the save, when you load the save, it says like, hey, you need to have these mods enabled or downloaded in order to play this save. So
interesting.
I don't know how that's gonna work. I guess I need to find an older save or so. I don't know, or start a new game. That one, I didn't think about the consequences of adding all those mods in, unfortunately.
As somebody
it's a good
who's
PSA maybe for people,
it is, but it's like, I mean, whenever any game that when you mod, you just have to, as we all know, because we modded a game, and by the time you're able to play it, you're now burned out on the game. I mean, that's sort of Bethesda games where you're just like, I'm going to mod all this shit in, and you check if everything works. There's no exclamation point like in Morrowind when you get a big exclamation or a purple guy and you'd be like, something's wrong. You get it all running, and by the time you were done, you're all, All right. Well, so anyway, let's go play Final Fantasy. And you go back to it later and you're like, I don't even remember what I modded in or what have you. I sort of think most people who play it and they probably know. I have heard some complaints on the Xbox though. For example, we have one guy who he modded the shit out of the Xbox version. And I was warning him right when he started. I'm like, listen, it's an Xbox. It's not a 4090. It's not a brand new AMD. If you're adding draw distances and graphics and tons of textures, at some point, you're going to, and this has happened with all their games, at some point you're going to run up to the inevitable wall. And he did. It was like starting to, really chug FPS wise and all that kind of stuff. But I think most people will probably be able to be aware of exactly what Bethesda's doing with this. And then you'll get that inevitable modder who's like, hey man, so I made better textures and they're only 2 gigs instead of 14 like the original game. You're like, what the hell? It happens every time. It's
There's
one of the
always
first
some
things
superstar.
Dude, there is, and they are superstars, by the way.
They curate a lot of that stuff too in the creation section. Like they have verified creators.
The verified
Bethesda's like verified, and then of course you can sort by all the different things that you want. When I modded all that stuff months ago, I added a ton of stuff in there. Like I said, one of them was like it basically turned your character into Batman. It gave them armor that looked like Batman.
Me and you, we're best friends for life. I have that mod.
Yeah,
I have the mod.
Here's the thing: is they took that out of the creation store shop thing. I say shop, you don't have to buy it, at least not that particular one. But it was probably because of like Warner Brothers probably had some legal thing, right? So when that happened, I took screenshots of it 3 months ago. When you take screenshots in that game, they become loading screens. Right?
Yeah.
So I started the sponsored stream yesterday. Batman shows up on the first load screen, and I'm just like, oh shit.
Let me tell you, the screenshots becoming loading screens is absolutely one of the most phenomenal ideas.
It's a great idea, yeah.
And was so broken the moment I started because I was taking questionable shots. I was screwing around with the camera, and they started showing up. And I remember looking, going, that is a weird, like, loading screen, whatever. And then the next loading screen came up, and I'm like, they're watching me. They're watching me. But I love the idea, and it adds a personal touch, and I hope other games do it. I mean,
it's cool.
Especially games that are so big on photo mode. There's so many games with photo mode. It's like, well, instead of
any
having
PlayStation game,
they definitely love it, and Spider-Man in particular has done awesome with the frames and comic book stuff, which they've really blown it out of the water. I would love to see more of that be sort of in some way, put into the game more, so it's not just in that separate part. Moving on from there, any Gamescom titles that you guys saw announced or saw video of that are exciting or not exciting? By all means, we can talk about things that like didn't.
Borderlands 4.
Can I open a cam? Oh, you go first. There you go.
No, go for it.
No, you said it. You take the first one. You lead off.
Take it, Johnny.
Borderlands 4. It's finally happening, Carrick. We're gonna get a non-teenage adventure. It will be fantastic. We'll have the great gameplay, but without a angsty teenager plot.
Maybe.
You now working for a PR company that I'm not aware of, man?
I was like, you have high hopes right now based on some things that happened recently.
This is why I have you on. I love having your positivity, man.
You don't.
What do you guys? That's a good question. What do you guys want from Borderlands 4? What is going to make? Because I hadn't played really 1 and 2 a little. I tried to play a lot of 3, didn't quite finish it because it just didn't land with me with the humor. I'm kind of curious. What do you want with 4?
Go ahead, JP.
I don't know if I have an answer for that. Like Borderlands 1 and 2 were, I think, they were great titles for their time, and they kind of encapsulate that time of games and the style of writing that was in games at that time. But I feel like, not to get like too I don't even know what it self-indulgent, but I feel like writing has just gotten better, right? Like for me, here's what I would want. I think I said this yesterday or the other day on stream when they showed Borderlands 4. If they can get the Telltale Borderlands writers to write Borderlands 4 and get rid of all of the like Borderlands bullshit where it's just like referencing 6-month-old memes or year-old memes that are not relevant anymore.
Right.
I would love that. Because the base game of Borderlands, like shooting and looting and having all those guns, it's still pretty fun, and a ton of games emulate that still today, right? Like they were big titles. There's a reason why there's a fourth Borderlands. There's a reason why a movie, granted it's not the best movie, came out recently with
Absolutely.
that IP. It's a huge IP.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Take-Two bought Gearbox. And the IP and everything, right?
Absolutely.
And it's
Yep.
to make Borderlands 4. So I hope whatever that is that it's actually, it's like they move forward and it's not just Borderlands 3, right? Because Borderlands 3 was just Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 2 was just Borderlands 1. There hasn't been any movement forward from like a writing perspective, apart from, I think, that Telltale Borderlands game, which for me was like incredible writing. It had one of the most like emotional hooks of kind of all the Telltale games from like The Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us and all that stuff. It was one of the best. So I just want like a good story to go with it that's not just, you know, claptrap jokes across the board.
Yeah, and
some
butt
sort of,
jokes. And
yeah,
like, yeah, I feel you.
But at the
Ebontis,
same
what about
time,
you?
it's still cool.
I mean, I think you nailed it. It's like we have had, but I mean, an example from earlier this year is Pacific Drive.
God, that game's good. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I was like, I got done with that game. I'm like, how did that end up being this good? Because it just built the whole way, and I loved it.
Dude.
And I was like, they told such a story with people off screen. And I'm like, if that can be done, if I can experience, I also thoroughly enjoyed God of War, which may be one of those that, you know, cliche like, but I mean, the story that you feel and the emotions that you get from that, it's decent writing is doable. And it's like the Borderlands 3, you can tell when something's trying too hard, way too hard sometimes. And it's just if it's, you know, if it fits in trying to tell a story, not just like, oh, I want to be jokey all the time. And as you guys have, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. It's like, I just want a decent story. The gameplay, the loot. I mean, I think if they could, I don't know if they'll reinvent the art style, but I think the whole cell shaded look, while does look cool, I'd be kind of curious if they would take that a different way. But overall, just running around, shooting and looting and stuff could be fun.
Yeah.
If it's not a live service game, that's probably okay because we don't need any more of those. But it's like the story, the reason I'm going through to this journey to the different worlds, make that worth my time. Guardians of the Galaxy, oh man, like the combat wasn't even the greatest for me in the grand scheme of things, but I was there for every story beat 100% of the way through. So if the combat can be as good as Borderlands combat can be, just a lot of fun, put a story that's worth me going through it. That's kind of the biggest thing for me about that one. It's like, I want to enjoy my time with it and not just cringe at every joke.
I like that you mentioned that one as well, because the big thing that's missing, I think, in Borderlands is good banter. You know, they tried to do it a bit with claptrap and stuff. It's kind of always been really cringy and terrible. So I think even just having some decent banter with a couple of likable characters would go a very long way. Even if the story is, you know, very kind of predictable and everything like that.
Did you try to say trash?
Chemistry. I pulled back from
we banned that word now. What are you doing? Yeah. So the reason why Johnny was teasing me is because I actually it's not that I disagree, it's that my problem is fundamentally that the gameplay, especially the weapon types, are the same for so long. I need some new weapon manufacturers. I need some reason. I won't do the porn joke, but when they explode and there's all these colors flashing into the air, this fountain
you
of
made
love.
it worse by prefacing.
Did I make it worse?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, you did set it up.
And I am doing that gesture, but I would love to see new weapons and new effects, and I would like a fundamental like increase in that, because I personally think that the cell shading, I think we all agree, I don't mind cell shading, but we're way past the time of it just needs to be a desert with a rock here and a rock there. We're past that. They can do that. I'm not too worried. It'll be how their level designers work. But I'm big into the reward, and I think that the actual weapons, whether it be your Back for Bloods or other games that I'm not remembering right now that do really good weapon loot or not weapon loot, but do really good systems within. They've upped the game, and Borderlands in particular, D&D, really stunned me with its lack of forethought in some of the stuff it did. I was expecting them to take, as a D&D fan, I had a million ideas, and in the opposite way of Baldur's Gate, which gave people a bunch of the things that I love, I was stunned that the D&D Borderlands didn't do really.
Are you
almost
talking about the
anything.
Tina one?
Yeah, Tiny Tina. And we've had both their audio engineers on multiple times because I cover audio all the time. I love those guys. But I told them, I was just like, I don't know what's going on there, but I would love to see this improvement in those places. The story, I agree with you guys, because whenever you base a story and the banter around an annoying character, that annoyance it's only there for a small amount of time. If you get to your third Talladega Nights, you're going to be like, well, Farrell, whatever. You just need to, go away. Like, we're done. We don't. Jim Carrey.
Well, that's the best thing they could do. You start the game and Claptrap he dies. They just shoot him
immediately.
Like, like if that's the first opening frame of the game, I think you win people over immediately.
That might set the tone alone. That's your trailer.
I mean, what if the entire? I was just gonna say the worst idea I've ever had, which is what if the entire game was based around trying to get his parts together? That'd be the worst reward ever. Because I wouldn't play the game. I'd be like,
you bring him back. No,
it'd be like Mary Jane and Spider-Man. I'd be like, if I don't save her, will they kill her? I would say with Borderlands though, there's a lot of stuff that they could improve. I'm really excited for it because. Just because I also don't think companies should be shut down because they have a bad game or what. It's the weirdest thing.
Oh,
it's
absolutely,
like, you just, they didn't nail it. My authors haven't nailed every book. By the way,
it's never too late to take it in a different direction, even artistically. I think it would be really impactful if when we see the first full trailer, they jump into it and it's like a hyper realistic.
You mean originally? They have some pictures you can go back and see before Borderlands was cel shaded.
Yeah, but like nowadays graphics, kind of like maybe Cyberpunk if you want to compare it to something.
Dude, that's a man.
It would be risky, but imagine the impact though. When you look at the trailer and you go like, "Holy, okay!" So
especially if they didn't tell you what it was. There was no opening, and you just see what looks like
just a clean trailer.
And you see a cycle. Because you can recognize, you would see the cycle and then you go, hold on a second.
There you go. That's, man. I mean, here's the thing. Whenever, you were talking about Guardians, Ebontis, which is weird because Guardians trailers were terrible. And I remember looking at the trailers going, uh-oh. And I was playing it alone because, again, you can't talk to anybody. And I was so excited to hit... here's a review embargo and find out if other people, because I was like, am I the only one? Am I going to be the only person saying this game has been a way to, and then to see people go like, holy shit. So with Borderlands, the same thing could happen. We could see their ideas and it could turn out to be this great thing. I think, I don't hold out hope for that. I'll just say that. I don't. I just don't hold out hope.
So can I pause for a small tangent on that, by the way? The more and more that I've played stuff under embargo in the past few years that have kind of had access and reached out and tried, and it's like things start coming your way. Playing stuff in your own bubble is really nice, but also really weird at the same time because in my house, playing Mega Man 3 growing up and stuff, I didn't have internet guides or anything. So you're just bashing your head against this wall, figuring it out. And it's kind of nice to come full circle back to, it's like, all right, I got to figure this thing out and nobody can tell me how to do it. All right, let's go and try and figure this out. But also, as you said, it's kind of like, what is everybody else going to think? And part of me is like, well, I shouldn't care what anybody else thinks, but I am still curious what everybody's going to think.
See, to me, it's the excitement though. I mean, I can bitch about stuff, but then I get really quickly burned out. What I'm talking about is the excitement I miss out because I played it first. And I'm in my Discord. 20 people are streaming Dragon's Dogma. And they're all asking me how to get to something. And I'm like, oh, I'm a tour guide because I've already played it. Yeah. I'm the guide before the guides are made. And there was this tangible, keen, solitary moment I had where I was like, oh, I can't actually play that with these guys. Like, my time has passed, and it was a great time. I miss the communal, especially with Discord in particular. Discord's a weird thing, man, because it's not the internet. at least for me, we have a paid Discord, and there's a reason, because the unpaid was a disaster. But the paid Discord, you get people in there and they have a vested interest in like discussion of games like your friends may have if you had good friends that weren't dicks. And you all get in there and they're playing it and they're like, oh man, this is, and you get that really cool feeling. I mean, I get what you're saying, but to me, it's more it's not like a bad thing. It's just that I miss out that energy of everybody playing something at the same time. Yeah, we do miss a lot. I've passed up on a couple games because I wanted to play them with friends.
I fully get that. Yeah, you're not in that moment. You're on the next moment, and then you're watching everybody else live your past. It's really weird, but I get that. Yeah.
Go ahead, Johnny. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say yesterday was magical because we had like 5-6 people in your Discord chat, and like 3 of us were going through the same moment in Wukong, like fighting this tiger boss. And you were like, you were giving some tips. We were kind of talking about the fight, but it was really cool to kind of, because everybody's going through their own journey in the game and experiencing with different like stances, builds.
And Dragon's Dogma, we had 30 plus people streaming it all at once. I'm surprised Discord didn't die that day. But the feeling of watching more than 20 streams going, of everybody playing Ghost of Tsushima was this way, or Tsushima, whatever. I always pronounce that wrong. I was so excited. I was so excited for that. But yeah, it's just a weird thing with reviewing. Back onto the Borderlands thing though, with the movie out, and that didn't set the world on fire. In fact, it might have put it out. Well, I don't know about you guys. I'm not too worried about the movie impacting the game, or like, to me,
I don't think it is.
They're separate.
That stuff happened. All those deals were made and formed before the Take-Two acquisition, so I don't think it's going to impact them whatsoever. If anything, I want to say that Borderlands 3 was them basically doing the same thing, and I say this as someone who just criticized them 10 minutes ago for doing the same thing, but they did the same thing because they didn't have the resources to do anything crazy, right? They didn't. Now, hopefully, with someone like Take-Two behind them, they can kind of do things a little bit more adventurous. So there is some excitement there. And I also think the reason this was announced as early as it was, it probably is like a 2027 game, I would think, if not 2026, is because Take-Two was like, hey, we bought this company. They're working on a Borderlands. That's what they're going to be doing. Get excited for it. And then we probably won't hear about it for a while. So with them kind of going dark on that, they do have the opportunity, as Johnny was saying, to like do something crazy. Sneak a trailer in, at Game Awards next year or in 2026 or whenever they want to do it, and just do something cool, do something unique. Because that's what the first Borderlands was, right? Like it was the
true.
I wouldn't say it was the first, but it was. They made that whole art style a thing within games.
They were a trendsetter.
Yeah, they exactly. They were the trendsetter for it. And so do that again. If you can do that again, I think that would be awesome, right?
The one I also wanted to bring up was Mafia. So, okay, these trailers are killing me, man.
Dude, we saw nothing in the trailer.
Elder Scrolls 99 or whatever Todd showed that one day with the the field,
the font.
But, I mean, I'm excited for Mafia. Mafia 3 didn't set the world on fire either. There were definitely some good parts, especially the first couple hours of that with the characterizations. But I'm excited for a new Mafia. I don't know if anybody else is. I'm a fan of the Mafia games. I'm a fan of, and it depends on how open world it'll be, and how they handle the story. But what did that be? 1960s? They said it was.
Yeah, it was like it's old. It's Sicilian Italy or whatever, right? Was the I think that's 60s.
And the buildings looked like there was a building in the far, and it didn't look modern at all. It looked like it was definitely an older style architecture. I'm excited for that. I mean, as excited as you can get about a damn.
Dude, I love those where it's an open world game, almost like GTA style, but it's an older time. There's something about, like the old streets.
Like Saboteur, where you're driving around in an ancient rickety car.
even kind of LA Noir did it. It was a bit more contemporary, but certainly like, you see I think it's like what, 90s type of vibe.
For which?
Anyway. Well, for LA Noir, was it like based
LA
on
Noir
the
was
90s?
Well, that was 60s.
60,
That was way earlier.
It was way earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, because you saw a lot of older stuff in it and looked amazing.
Yeah, they were still unironically rocking the fedoras, which
Oh,
like,
that's true. And like the older cars.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that game straight up. Like there's a reason
Yeah,
why I've
man.
done so many videos on that game. I just
The
think
vibe on it.
the contained video, the contained open world works incredibly well. And open world light, I guess, where it's like you can do some stuff, but it's not like here's 8,000 bike rides you can take. Let GTA do that. Let them spend supposedly $1 billion or $2 billion. Yeah, I'm fine with them doing that, and let the other people make sleeping dogs, right? Like,
God, yes, give us a Sleeping Dogs too. That'd be great.
Yeah, or True Crime 4. Just skip another name and be like a True Crime. Anything from you, JP? Because I know you like, was there any MMO stuff?
Oh, at Gamescom?
Yeah, Gamescom.
I mean, for me, the thing that I
Doesn't have
hyper focused on was Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yes.
Like I think
Cannot wait.
I did a full like solo Fatalis run earlier this year. I've always been a giant Monster Hunter fan, and I think everything that they showed for Wilds is like crazy. This morning they showed that there's going to be underwater stuff, but they said there's no fighting, so I don't know like what that means.
Like traversal, maybe to like
They
area?
showed like them swimming underwater and stuff, and that was the first time that was shown. I saw that at like 8 a.m. this morning. They've been doing daily streams of it where they've done like 2 long hunts. It's almost like 2 hours of footage each time, but it's just been a blast to watch. I think that game is already for me. You know, I hate when people do it, but I'm going to do it. It's in the conversation for Game of the Year, right? Just because of how much I love the Monster Hunter franchise and how much Capcom is on a roll right now with everything they've been doing. So, you know, I hope that after Gamescom they can start cooking on that and we get a release date. I'm kind of curious what the timeline is for it, right? Because I was fully expecting a release date at Gamescom, but I guess maybe we can get one at Tokyo Game Show in September. If not, I think the last chance, the for sure one will probably be Game Awards in December. And then that probably ships like February, if not late or early spring next year, which there's got to be a demo, right? At some point in they did a ton of demos with Worlds. So they'll probably have the Gamescom demo like fully functional. We'll get that as a demo, hopefully sometime this fall/winter. I don't know. A lot of my timeline is like super hopeful because I just want to play that game so bad. But yeah, Wilds is looking absolutely fantastic. Everything they showed just gets me more and more excited for that.
You guys sound like you're into it too, Ebontis.
So I'd tried a couple of Monster Hunter games previous. World, I fell all the way down. I fell all the way into the well on Worlds because I put 200 hours into just the base, much before Iceborne or anything like that. Something about just the loop and the monsters and it was like, because I'd played enough Souls and action games and everything. And I was like, and then finally it connected up the dots, and it helped the quality of life things. And then I touched a little bit of Rise and Sunbreak and a couple of those things a little bit, but I was like, I want the next big one. And then I've been waiting on this. And then now the fact that it's the teases and everything's looking fantastic. I mean, I'm kind of with you. If there's a demo, I end up getting like hooked on 1 or 2 weapons. So I want to try and like venture outside of my comfort box a little more. Cause I think it was the switch axe that I used a ton of, if I remember correctly. But there's so many that look good. But the daily weapons and everything have been killing me too.
The crazy thing for this one is you can bring 2 weapons into fight.
Bring 2 weapons, I know.
Right? So like that is, and I want to say that you can bring 2 of the same weapon. Right, so like if you're all in on Charge Blade or 2 or
just
whatever
2 different
weapon,
styles, you
can bring like your raw physical DPS and your elemental version, right?
That's amazing.
So if you're fighting different monsters, and it just looks awesome. Like I could talk about Wilds for a very long time.
Oh yeah, that could be a
that.
podcast. That could be a whole podcast.
But what's your weapon of choice, JP? Do you have one go-to?
So when I did the like solo Fatalis run at the beginning of this year, it was Hammer. And funny enough, that's like the hardest one to do a Fatalis run with. I figured out. I didn't know that going in, and then I spent I think 23 hours on that boss over the course of like a month. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, it was a nightmare. But there's no better feeling than when that happened. It was incredible. But I've played Longsword, Charge Blade. I've kind of played everything except for the ranged weapons. I've never been a big fan of them for whatever reason. But they look really cool in Wild. So maybe
They
this
do,
time
and
around
with the dual
play
weapon
something.
you talked about, that's the perfect setup, right? You have a
Right.
little pew pew.
I feel like you
You
could almost
switch
find
to-
a spot for like the hunting horn with your weapon to get yourself some buffs if you
Oh,
can
get
I
switch.
played
some
Hunting
buffs.
Horn and Rise. Yeah, it was really good. But that's a great point, actually. You could bring both. Buff yourself and then swap, right?
What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've always played with Greatsword, so I really want to branch out into different. Because there's a big dopamine with the Greatsword. You know, when you land the big, but there are fights where you feel like you're kind of gimped because your options are just so limited based on the moveset of some monsters. You just need to have so much patience. You know, they need to be in the right spot, do the right move for you to be able to do anything. That being able to switch to something like the dual knives, where you can just, ka-ching your way to victory slowly and steadily.
Yeah, that's one of the few games I can say, especially Worlds, where I was trying a bunch of things that wasn't really clicking with me until I switched to hammer, and I'll never go back. I'll just have 2 hammers probably.
Hey.
Hell yeah. There you go.
I don't know what happened, but I remember grabbing a hammer finally, and I was like, what the is going on? Like, it just worked with my whatever I was thinking on how the game was supposed to be played. And the idea of 2, though, is fantastic because you're already carrying around a, impossible looking sized weapon anyway. So the idea of 2 impossible looking sized weapons, basically half of them are fenders from like a 1957 Chevy that have been sharpened into a sword. It's like, who gives a shit? It looks cool. And I love the idea of being able to have 2 weapons. I mean, to me, that's awesome. The idea of buffing and then switching. Depends on how fast it works and all that kind of stuff, obviously.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that will work as well. But in theory, that could be great. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, man, I liked Rise a ton, but there was something about World that just felt, I don't know. There was something, and so the idea of this one,
that's why it got me, I think,
This feels like World 2, and it just, like, everything they've shown. And then the thing about camping, taking your camp with you and being able to camp wherever you wanted. The water thing, which I didn't know about. All the stuff, I've seen it. And then I talked to, he did. He posted a video. I want to make sure I wasn't saying something I wasn't supposed to. But Fighting Cowboy posted a hands-on video of it. And I've talked to him. And, we have some disagreements because he's really a Dark Souls fan. But as we've talked about it and, like what the difficulties are for each particular game, I sort of understand wherever he's coming from. And he's really talked it up as being like, man, pretty much everything about it feels good. The only complaint I've ever heard, and it's come up a couple times in our Discord, which is that in particular, the UX, and just when you get into the inventory stuff, it has a Capcom feel to it. And I would actually agree with that and say that would be nice to maybe smooth up. There's a lot of they don't do soft menus like Ubisoft where you press a button, you can go get a fucking sandwich before that thing loads up. But there's still a lack of responsiveness, especially when you're in the middle of something. You're like, I'd really love to be able to jump in. There's a couple things I'd like them to fix, and I haven't looked closely enough to see if they have. But overall,
I saw
it just looks fantastic.
I saw in single player you can actually pause the game now.
Well, that's good right there.
Someone said that right off the bat on Twitter. Obviously, all this stuff could change, and I might have outdated info. So I know that was out there. The other thing too is there's no like hub city, right? So like you kill a monster, then you go back to your camp.
Yeah,
it doesn't like in the mission, right?
Gotcha.
And you can move your camp exactly.
Yeah.
And they even said that where you put your camp can actually be attacked by a monster, and you can like lose whatever.
So maybe you're building up your camp in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe you're putting.
I don't know what I don't know what that meant. I just know that he said like monsters can attack it.
What if you can? What if you can use monster? What if you can like trap monsters and use them to defend your camp or something?
I'm not sure. Two
I'm
of the other
talking
things.
Monster. Well, now it's just Pal World Monster Hunter. So
there you go. Yeah. I know that they also some of the other big like social media hits that you can now wear. There's no like gendered armor. So a male character can wear all the female armor and a female can wear all the male armor, which is cool. What else was there? You can pick up traps when you put them down now. You can walk over and pick up a trap, which is
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
The amount of times.
The dev
Yeah.
like walked over and he smiled at the camera and he was like, "Look at that."
Dude.
He pressed his button and like picked up the trap and he's like,
Because
"That's
the
right."
amount of times you would place a trap
Yeah.
and the dino walks like just beside it.
Yeah.
And you go like, am I a joke to you? I expended
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
trap.
Yeah. So that was really funny.
No, that's a real one. Nice.
They've just like gotten a lot of, I think, the feedback that they got for so long, and it seems like they're implementing, all the right stuff.
I feel like that's kind of how World was too. It was like generations and stuff before that. They did enough quality of life things, and now, okay, you hadn't done quite this many things, as you said, even ACG, like the UI. It's like maybe this is their massive next implementation of
that's
so
my
many
hope.
little pieces of feedback it's going to do it.
There's a couple tweaks for the UI in terms of the inventory. So like in Worlds, how you just had to scroll constantly until you found it. And there was ways to like favorite stuff. And this one, they I don't know how they broke into it. I don't know if it was like hold down the button or push into it, but it basically brought up a like full screen UI kind of. And so you could move and manipulate kind of like, almost a little bit like a Resident Evil UI. But not where things take up a certain amount of slots. It was just like a bigger expression of everything, so you could go over to something much faster. So that was kind of cool. It seems like they're trying different things. But yeah, I think the UI and how that is manipulated, it's kind of 1-in-1 with Monster Hunter. But I do agree with you, like for people that don't play Monster Hunter, you look at that and you're just like, what the hell is this is bizarre. But then you put 20 hours into it and it's second nature. So it's a weird system for sure.
I mean, and it happens with a lot of games where they don't switch it and they do, and some people don't like it. It doesn't, because for whatever reason, whatever cumbersome system you get is pretty close to the best you can get with that many things. So it could turn out to be that. There's a lot in those games. And
Totally.
Each time I go in, I'm like, okay, almost get, take some notes, be like, this item is over here and these things are collected here. Moving on from there, one I wanted to mention was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So I got to do the early preview that they showed. Did you do that one, JP?
I did not.
I got like the early video preview.
That's what I got. Yeah, like it was a little longer, I guess, than the main one. But I still need to see that game
in my hands.
I just need to see it because Machine Gun answered really clearly on why it was first person. Because I've always been like, there's some Uncharted worry there. Even though Indiana Jones started it all, then Tomb Raider took it, then Uncharted took it, then Tomb Raider took it, then Uncharted took it, and they're going back. Machine Games were like, listen, this is what we do as first person. So there was no ever thought process of not doing first person, which I understand, and I applaud them for that. But at the same time, I need to see how it's just going to feel and look, because, what I'm seeing in the trailers, I haven't got to touch it, or it's just I need to see how the aiming works with a whip, which, by the way, is a reason why whips and chains aren't used in a lot of games. Collision detection's weird. There's all kinds of difficulties there. Neo did it pretty well, but there's a lot of games that just don't have them. Red Dead 2. I just need to see it. I think the humor, as an Indiana Jones fan, I'm fine with the humor. I saw some people say it was too slapstick, but I'm like, man, I don't know. If you take all those movies into account, even Temple of Doom, which is probably my favorite because I liked the darker ones. There's a lot of goofy humor in them. I didn't really have any issues with the cutscenes I've seen. I just need to play it and sort of. I just need to play it. I'm having a really hard time even identifying how it would feel as indie, because it's not about shooting. They've stated that you sort of as indie need to be risk adverse, which he was, which I get, but right now, to me, it's one of the biggest unknowns I have. Like, of all the games, actually, all these games, even the ones I saw trailer for, I can go, oh, but this one, it's cuts to third person and then back to first for the cutscenes is like, okay, I sort of get what they're doing because they got Indiana Jones' face, they hired, I don't know how, but they scanned his head in, looks great. But yeah, I don't know. Did you guys have anything to add for Indiana Jones? Like, does anybody?
I will go last.
It's no, I agree with you. You started to really make me think, like, they haven't shown the like uncut gameplay
Right.
of like a level, right? It's all cutscenes, it's all quips, and like that is Indiana Jones, right? Like that's who that character is. But yeah, we don't know what that second to second gameplay looks like yet.
Yeah.
Which is a great point. I do fully trust Machine.
Yes.
Is it Machine Head, Machine Gun?
Machine Games, right? Am I
Yep.
saying that right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's Machine
Yeah,
Games.
okay. Yeah, I do trust them, obviously, with like Wolfenstein, all that stuff, to make a great first-person game. But you make a good point. Like, how does that translate to the world of Indiana Jones? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
It's going to be difficult, yeah. And they have not shown us, to my knowledge, they have not shown us what that is yet. They've just shown a lot of Troy Baker as Indiana Jones, which fits. I think that's great. They've nailed the character, they've nailed the theme and all that stuff. The gameplay is where I'm unsure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ebontis, unless Johnny has something to add before he goes.
No, I was just going to say my level of excitement as a defense mechanism is very low.
That's smart. Yeah.
Because, the upside of being positively surprised is excellent. So I'm staying pretty neutral on that one.
Okay.
I feel like you have a good mindset because I need to hopefully be surprised as well, because I think I'm where ACG is too. I mean, it's Indy through and through. Like, you watch that and I was like, that scene belongs in a movie. That's exactly what Indy would say. Fits perfectly. Troy's doing an extremely good job for nailing the voice, I think. And I think it's going to be a pretty game. From the very first moment I saw the whip go out, I was like, something looks wrong, feels wrong.
Yeah.
It felt off to me. And I'm kind of going, as you said, how do you aim it? That's one, but it just looked kind of janky. I don't know if the animation will look better when it's live and it's in my hands or something, but it was just something about, and not saying that they can't pull it off, but it was just from what I've seen so far. I'm glad because I feel like everybody else has been like, oh, it's one of my top favorite excited things. I'm like, I am more unsure about that than, like, I mean, Starfield for me was like a 6, an 8, a 7, a 6. Like, it was a whole journey for me as I played through that review score in my head. Indy right now, I'm going, I don't honestly know, and I think I am way more trepidatious on being positive than half of what I've seen online, which is weird, but I'm glad I'm not the only one. So
that's a good word too.
Trepidatious. It's a good word. I think also, so we've had Anthony and Gruber on the podcast 2 or 3 times. He's the guy who he was Harrison Ford as a young kid in a movie with Harrison Ford, because he's got the best Harrison Ford. I mean, it's ridiculous. He can, his vocal ability is amazing, but I have to hand it to Troy Baker, who at times, and I've been really open that, I do cover voice, and I'm like, what does this, voice add to the game? Certain games where he's been a bad guy or whatever, it sounds like Troy Baker doing the Troy Baker show, because that's mostly the audio director not pushing him. We had the Hitman vocal actor on, and I was like, how does somebody push you to be more Hitman? Like, that makes no sense. Bateson was on, we had him on the podcast, and he made it clear. He was like, no, there are things that they can do to make, you're not hitting the rasp, or you're not hitting this. So it's like, I do expect those things. Troy did a really good job. Really good. It's hard to get Harrison Ford, because Harrison Ford has a very, very, I am tired of this entire universe other than my wife's sound to him. And when you hear him talk, there's a weird thing in his chest. That's one of the things I like to study, is what the different sound, and he's got a very from his who fucking cares. It's all down here, comes up. Troy's pretty close. He's pretty close. So I think I'm really happy with that. And his face, like all that. But the moment he swung that whip, I was like, is it because it's first person and you can't see the spool up of the whip? And I do believe it's that. So when you do a whip,
that makes some sense.
You're not seeing momentum. You're literally seeing a wand with a leather lightning bolt. And that is really hard. Wild Bastards is having this issue. They have a lasso for one of their characters, and I brought it up in my preview. I'm like, ooh, that doesn't feel good, not being able to see the behind to the back, not being able to see the full actions of something. I'm excited to check it out. I like the idea that it's going to be a bit of stealth, and you're not going to be running around shooting people. You can. I like the idea of that. They've made it very clear that that's not the plan. They also stated very clearly when asked how long it was, they didn't want to talk about time, which I'm okay with developers not. I think the time, again, question, opens up a can of worms that is just devastating sometimes. But they did say it's the biggest game they've ever made. The biggest game they've ever made. And I'm okay with that. That answer was like, okay, I can say if that's true or not when I review it. But what they said, that appealed to me. I did see something that they haven't shown. That we can say we saw something. They did show some stuff in that video that did show a little bit more gameplay, and I did like what I saw there. But I would say JP's right. It feels like every one of their trailers is a stinger trailer, not a here we go, here's you walking around a level. Just give me one level walk, or not a level walkthrough, maybe facing the first boss or something where they do that.
A section?
Yeah, that like last chapter of, yeah, just a section. 4.1, just give me a little blurb, show them walking around, take some people out. So we'll just have to see. Anybody else have anything? Let's see, from Gamescom. What did you guys think?
I had a couple things outside of those you already mentioned. Reanimal from THQ looked really good. Kind of like a Little Nightmares follow-up. I had some insanely like creepy looking, but
the color,
creative
the
and
shadow, the design, the artwork on everything was very inside.
Yes.
Even though there's another inside, it was
that's from the Little Nightmares. It's a bizarre thing because even when they revealed it, I was like, oh, it's from, is it Tertier? Is that the dev?
It sounds right. Yeah.
Tertier or Tersay, I don't know.
Yeah, so that's from the Little Nightmare devs originally because they sold the Little Nightmares IP to Bandai Namco, which is making Little Nightmares 3, which doesn't look great.
Oh.
And that was also at Gamescom. And this looks so much better than Little Nightmares 3, which they're not a part of, in my opinion.
It reminds me of Don't Nod and Deck 13 with Life is Strange. Because they also had the sale, and as a Life is Strange freak, I see the different company handling the thing, and you're like, oh, weird, but we're doing another one that's not Life is Strange. So the same thing's happening here because we saw Little Nightmares 3 at the same event, which was confusing as hell to me because I didn't know they sold it. And so I was like, they're doing 2? And then realized when I looked at it. So, I mean, Little Nightmares 3, we'll have to see, but I think that one looked awesome. Johnny,
I agree.
I think that one looked really good. Did you have another one, Johnny?
I did want to talk about the Crimson Desert stuff. I don't know, was that in Gamescom or like separate?
It was separate, I think. I don't know if we saw that in the trailer. I saw a ton of videos afterwards, though. I don't know if those are on purpose. There were some leaks that came out, and then there were some actual official ones. So there's Crimson Desert's hard. There's somebody leaking a bunch of stuff for Crimson Desert because you see videos show up on different Reddits and stuff.
Yeah.
But that game is either gonna spectacularly hit, or nothing is gonna feel contained in that game.
So that's the Black Desert single player, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That had a couple of like videos that were super graphically intensive and
riding a horse, transforming, flying. They did have, I don't know if this is leaked or not, so I don't want to say it was a Gamescom, but there was a video of them. I think Johnny saw the same one where he attacked the land crab. And that might have been one of the coolest boss fights I have ever seen. When he transforms into the crow, whatever, and flies around, then does a Spider-Man swing, and then lands on the back, and the graphics, just phenomenal looking.
Yeah.
But,
So that's official. I'm looking at IGN.
Is it official?
That.
Okay, great. So we can,
and it's labeled as Gamescom 2024. So
okay. Johnny, go for it.
No, I mean, I also saw one where they were fighting like a white horn boss thing.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that one?
I did. A little less.
Yeah.
A little less impressive than the.
And then,
crab.
exactly. That's the direction I'm going because the level of quality of the different videos I've seen has been
dramatically different.
So, even IGN has another one. I think it's a 7-minute. It's called Official Reed Devil Boss Battle. If people want to look it up, and that one looked way worse. I'm not sure I would want to play that combat looking at that, but then other stuff looked amazing. So
wow, I'm watching this
all
crab
over the
footage.
shop.
This is wild.
The crab footage is wild. Then you see one where he fights something in the snow, and you're like, "Woo, this is jank." I mean, it's like Euro jank kind of stuff. And then you see another video that you're like, it's in the middle. And Johnny and I've talked about this, where it almost feels like they're from different times, as in different development times. Like one is an earlier one, because even the moves feel more contained. But then you see him riding a horse, and the horse canter, like as somebody whose family owns horses, you see that. And if it's done well, like Red Dead, there's something about it that you're like, wow. And there are parts with the horse in that game that I'm like, holy shit, they nailed that. I mean, there's a lot of different parts of that look phenomenal, but that's so many different gameplay systems.
When's that supposed to come out? Is that next year?
I don't even know if it has a date. I've been
even
looking
know if it
and
has a
listening. Yeah, it's like probably 2020.
And the frame rate I saw in one of those videos was like, that has a long way to go.
Yeah. Okay.
We need DLSS like 5.
We need you need NVIDIA to release a new card.
5090 we need. We need the 5090.
We need the 5X series.
Yeah. I love those games that, I mean, that's the other thing. Is like, yeah, it's sad, or it's not sad, but it's like, oh, it's a little concerning, but at the same time, dude, a game that's just saying we're gonna like basically Dragon's Dogma 2, Dragon's Dogma. We're just gonna go above and beyond.
Yeah.
I honestly put it in the same camp as like Wukong, right? Like,
yeah,
I didn't think Wukong was a game.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, I did know it was, but I know a lot of people did not, because I got a lot of shit for that. But yeah.
So I hope that that's the type of thing where, you know, a year or two from now, whenever that comes out, it's a huge hit. Obviously, I think a lot of people never say it, but people want games to succeed, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the type of game where you want it to succeed, because the promise looks so cool.
Yep. What about you, Ebontis? What do you think? Are you still watching it? I can see he's...
Oh, no, I've been going through a couple different videos on it. It was like, because I've caught some, but I hadn't seen the crab thing yet either. And then I saw the horse trotting. It's just... there's a whole lot there, and it's just like, can that plane touch the ground and not be in flames as it lands, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot going...
Good comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that's intriguing, and
Black Desert had an amazing looking character editor.
Oh yeah,
you know that thing. I mean, I still think it might be the best one I've seen in a game, and that thing was phenomenal. Dragon's Dogma 2 did well, but it's like that doesn't make an entire game. But then I see other stuff, and I can tell it's real because I'm always getting shit from my Discord, because I'll be like, well, you can tell that's real or not if you see AI react in the background or something. And you're definitely seeing that in all those trailers. There's one trailer where he gets on a wagon and he kicks a person off. And if you look way in the distance, a guard walks forward. He sees it happen and walks forward. Stuff that they wouldn't even turn on because it spares CPU cycles. So you're like, hey, we're not even going to worry about that. So I mean, and that battle, that's obviously real. All that stuff looks great. We just need to get it all into one game that, like you said, doesn't light on fire on the way home. I wonder how much that one cost. That's
dude, man,
yeah. There's some serious cost going into games, man. Games are and if you ignore that PR used to be 50%, it's probably less now. But PR being so expensive, whatever it costs,
do you think it's less now that they're just using influencers and streamers a lot more?
Probably because I've talked to Ko about this actually a couple times, because we don't do sponsors, and I've been like, well, when you do them, how do you separate? Because I just don't want to even worry about it. I'm like, I'm doing reviews. I don't want any cash. But then I've been sent some offers, and I think I've shown you a couple, Johnny, where I'm like, what the? But here's the thing. It may sound like a lot to me, but it makes more sense to have me talk about it with 1 million subscribers than it does to put a picture of Spider-Man up on a subway that some guy walks by and goes, what the fuck is that? So there's some very smart spending on the PR side for getting those people. I think there's some questions that we all ask of, like, sponsored. It depends, because sometimes you do get, I've got a, hey, can you stream it on YouTube? And those are sometimes different NDAs. We've talked about it. It happened with Black Myth. My reviewer NDA said, say anything, just don't do it early. And that was it. But it does happen where you get those different NDAs. There's that question. But I think it's probably cheaper, man, because I can't remember what it was, but there was a game that was like 150 million. I remember the PR spend, and I think it was the leaked documents. One of these thousands of times somebody was hacked, and the PR spend was more than 50% of the cost of the game, as in the game was like 150 and it was like 75 for PR. That is mind blowing. And movies are the same way. You're looking at the
movies
PR
are
going,
Marvel's double budget. Yeah.
Yeah, double budget. So yeah, it makes sense to do it. I want it more to go into the game. You know, like if you're telling me it's 75 million, let's say for PR on something, I'm like, dude, we got to figure something out. That's just, that's ridiculous. At that point, that's even if you took half of that, 25 million for a company to have some extra resources, hire another couple people, what have you, that's magic right there. You know, like there's something you could have somebody do. So I love the idea of changing it up, but yeah, there's some question marks there. With Black Desert, I personally am thinking 2026 minimum, but that's just me.
Crimson feels very far away.
Or correct? Did I say? I did it again. Yeah, Crimson.
You're good.
Sorry, too many deserts.
No, believe me, I'm not going to keep them straight.
On the topic of budget, it is interesting, right? Because we saw with Shift Up, Stellar Blade earlier this year, right? They got all their money from Nikkei, which is the gacha game, which has essentially unlimited money. They're right up there with like all of the top gacha games, right? And so Black Desert made a shit ton of money. It is a pretty pay-to-win focused MMO with how that game functions. So hopefully this is kind of their Stellar Blade, take on things. Yeah, where they're going to be able to pump a ton of money into it and make a pretty badass single-player game. Yeah. I hope that's the case. I hope that's what we're all saying when it comes out.
And delay the damn thing until it's ready, please.
Oh, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, hey, if all the people who enjoy and want to put money into those mobile games fund the games that I'm looking forward to, have fun and you guys do that, and I'll just enjoy the benefits afterward.
Can you imagine if that's a new trend all of a sudden, like the people behind Honkai Star and Genshin?
Well, Honkai's a little different, right? Honkai's building a fucking nuclear reactor. Not joking. So that's where their money is going.
The money. True.
Yeah. So they might do like a single player game, but they just put out ZZZ is like their third title. They've got Honkai, Genshin, and ZZZ.
Did they do
now,
Withering? So. Who did Withering?
That was
Withering
separate,
is a
right?
different.
That's a different company.
Yeah.
That looked really good graphically. I was definitely was on a scale of not what I expected when I first saw it. Genshin's gameplay is great. I know a bunch of people who really are like, dude, that game is that game. Remember when mobile meant mobile? And I'm not saying it doesn't now, anymore. But you know what? Yeah. At least it's much closer now. Where you look, Lucitan, of course, is in the chat. He knows Kuro, Kuro must be the Withering guys.
Okay. Yeah.
As in robbing Peter to pay Paul, that can definitely happen. It also depends on where they are within a company structure if they can do that. But I'm sure that influx, and we've heard it with the Witcher, Good Old Games being connected to CDPR. Yep. So there's definitely different companies, and that's how they make money, and that's what they do. And I think Xbox, you can look at that and say Microsoft has a bunch of money, so they've allowed things to happen in different divisions that went longer than some people might allow if that money wasn't there. They're like, okay, we'll let it go a little longer and see what happens. I hope with this one that's what they do, because I would rather have this be delayed till 2026 and be awesome than come out in 2025 and we're all playing it saying if only.
Yeah, if it cooked a little longer. Yeah,
the if only thing is killer, man. Go ahead.
Having played that much Destiny, the if only world of potential, God, that's what I lived that for 10 years.
Yeah, if only they dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not even getting into the Destiny shit because that would
I know.
There's a new trailer for Destiny this morning, I think, for Echoes for their next thing.
No,
maybe that was yesterday.
Act 3 is Tuesday, which I'm gonna squeeze between a couple
for
of
a company
things,
so for a company so fucking engaged in a game that they want continued investment and new people coming in. They have the worst goddamn onboarding for new players I've just ever seen. And I was on the Iron Lords, and I know they're big fans, but I was like, I don't know how you guys even suggest this goddamn thing to somebody. And I've played it before, and I went back in and like, what the? There's 90 currencies, and there's 75. It's like light level, this level, back level, and it's like trying to solve a puzzle. And the shooting is good, which bothers me even more, because if the game sucked, I wouldn't have FOMO.
Oh no, that's the problem.
Masterclass.
Shooting is master.
The shooting feels is some of the best out there. Period. But I mean, me, Cognito, and Ty Guy Travis mostly do a Destiny show, which has turned half to variety at this point. But no, Travis brought two of his buddies on there, and one started, didn't last that long, and another one played for a while. But like the one, I watched a guy bring a new player, and it's just pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up,
Yeah.
pop up of like all the different things, and he'd get a random cinematic from this season. He's like, why is this guy drinking the like Nezarec tea? What? And he doesn't even know what that is. Like, so horrible. And we've talked about that for years, that like they've only been bleeding players and they've had no way to bring them in. And I'm like, I'm not surprised your player base is now going to be at its lowest. It is not a shock at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like birth rate in a country that's got a low one, where you're all, you may have all these people, but if you're not bringing new people in, that's why I was excited until now when we're here and the gaming's contracted a little bit. I used to always joke whenever I'd hear somebody say, oh, the only way to enjoy Final Fantasy Remake is to play the original. I'm like, fuck you, man. Sorry, that's rude. That's just like, these guys weren't even a glimmer in their daddy's eye when that game came out. Why are we gatekeeping it? We got new people, man. And new people bring new experiences, and those are people like you guys, or well, now half our age, who are coming in, who may be a developer if they have a good experience. And maybe somebody's playing Destiny right now who's taking notes saying, I'm going to make a good onboarding for the game I'm doing. That's cool, but not at the expense of the game that so many people want to enjoy. And you get in there, and this is as bad as it was. I had 3 people who played Destiny all the time, and since they hadn't done the onboarding in so long, they couldn't even remember the onboarding that existed. And so I was like, well, what do I do? And they're all, I think you go over there. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what? It's such a painful experience for newcomers, and it really sucks.
Yeah,
it really sucks.
100%. Yeah. I hope you're starting to see like World of Warcraft is a different type of thing when it comes to like a live service, right? But I think a lot of what they're doing now, they look at the errors that Destiny has had, and I think Diablo 4 is,
Diablo's
turning
trying to
into
do it,
a full live service, and a lot of things that they're doing is like, well, what did Destiny do? Let's not do that, or
Right.
let's tweak what Destiny did or Destiny's doing right now. So if anything, they are doing a service for the video game world, and that's by doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they survived. They survived in spite of themselves forever.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the anthems and the other stuff just didn't quite have it there, and they had a player base. But 10 years later, and this is what I'm wondering, is Final Shape's done. And this episode came with Final Shape. If you didn't buy the deluxe and you're like, hey, I just want to play Final Shape and be done, I'm worried about the player pace, which is already low right now, to go like fall off when we get to episode 2, because people are like, well, this episode kind of sucked, so why am I going to go to the next one? And I feel like that's where they're going to lose even more, is in October.
Dude, Destiny is the older brother, and they're making all the mistakes, and your parents are like, don't make the mistakes your older brother made. And I'm hoping that the younger brothers, the younger developers, are looking at everything they do and are going like, okay, they did have some success here, but boy, once they graduated, they turned to shit. And that's what I'm hoping other people are looking at. And it sounds like JP's saying with World of Warcraft, which I can't believe I played on a 98 second edition, Windows 98. Like, the idea of that still going is awesome, especially if they're starting to look at others and say, if we are still going, what do we do? Like, how do you continue growing? Which is
awesome. It's also, I mean, it's a larger discussion, right? Because Destiny ended their 10-year cycle. WoW is about to start, or as of yesterday, started the end of their 20-year cycle, right? So now they're doing this whole thing. They brought Metzen back. They've got these 3 big expansions where they're going to like finally tell an end to this story. What happens at the beginning of that end, right?
Exactly.
Final Fantasy 14 just did this with Dawn Trail. It wasn't received that well because people play Endwalker and they wanted, this big explosion of story and awesomeness and all that stuff, and then they have to start over.
Yeah.
So all these games are now existing long enough to where they're either where Destiny's at, where it's ended and they have to start over, and the player base doesn't want that. So it's almost like never end it. I don't know what the answer is on how to do that. No one's really gotten it right.
Yeah, Bungie's problem is if there was ever going to be a Destiny 3 to go do that, that would have been the marathon team.
It's now the time.
Yeah. Well, now would have been the time, and that would have been the marathon team, and then you could have tried but now, unfortunately, they're behind 2 different 8 balls, and they've screwed kind of themselves in both different directions.
And that's the thing that we talk about on the podcast all the time, is that most of the developers that we talk to, or that, like I'll DM and ask them a question about this kind of stuff, most of them are a little bit tentative on the MMOs holding fans not hostage, but their time. I can buy 2 games. I can't play 2 games at the same time, but I could buy 10 games. I can't play 10 games at the same time. So WoW is great, but if you're not growing the player base, which now we're hearing, you know, we're starting to see numbers where people are saying the console base hasn't expanded as much as everybody thought, blah, blah, blah. And then you're looking at a game like WoW or something where I admit getting people to move to another MMO was almost impossible because we had a guild and it was a family. And I was like, well, let's play ESO. And they're like, but why? Well, better graphics is a newer story. We're not doing the same stuff. And they're like, yeah, but you know, I know all the people. So there's this weird thing where we're not bringing in new people. I think WoW on the console might, but that is a whole other messy ass ball game of thousands of issues. And I don't think it fixes it either. It doesn't really fix that. It's just, I think we're in a sort of a dire state for the MMO place as well, because most MMOs are judged against WoW. Or judged against even Knights of the Old Republic, one of my favorite MMOs of all time. And I remember those guys came out and they were like, it's 8 KOTORs. And I was like, bullshit, you're liars. It can't be 8 KOTORs. And it was 8 KOTORs. I was like, oh, okay, well, I was wrong. You do have a bunch of story in there. But it's rare now because we all look at it and we're like, oh, I'm already at the end game. I'll go back to WoW. And then people leave it, and now you have articles, oh, the concurrent has dropped. And then that becomes a negative feedback cycle.
That's the new fad, yeah.
It's the new fad. Speaking of new fads, I do want to talk about something that I've seen once or twice, but this surprised me, which is Dying Light's Beast.
Yeah.
They split that from a DLC to its own.
A weird game.
Yep.
Yeah, its own thing. And it's got the protagonist, right? From the original game. So
I think so, yeah.
I'm a huge Dying Light fan. I'm excited for that. I was just blown away that they had decided to do a separate, because they're big on the DLC. I don't know if you guys follow them, but I definitely follow. Their DLC has been rock solid. Their support is like 10 years for Dying Light 1 or whatever, and they said 2 is going to have the same. But now we've got this one. And did you guys hear the reason? Because it was leaked. So they stated that originally it was DLC for number 2. It got leaked, so they said, "Screw it. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna pull back a little bit, make it its own thing." And yeah, it was like, okay, well that's one way to go.
Well, and they said like if you got the deluxe, it's included. I was like, that's impressive.
It's free if you have the deluxe.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah.
So what is the actual name? Is it Dying Light 2 :
Beast? No.
Oh, it's just Dying Light the Beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no 2 in it. That's what threw me off. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's.
I think that's because Dying Light 2 had so much whatever around it, right? Like it's kind of tarnished a little bit with Dying Light 2.
Is it?
So
I
think didn't that game like rush, or when it came out it had like kind of mixed reviews.
There was something. Was that the thing about the like this game has 500 hours of?
I did a video on that shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this game has 500 hours, and my videos 500 hours of what? Like, come on. I can spend 500 hours in a menu screen. That's not the same thing. Yeah, they definitely screwed up the PR, but from what I've been told and some of the numbers, it has sold very well now. But
that's good.
I think when it did launch, it was more in the like 76 to 84 range. I don't know what it is now. Dying Light 1, of course, was pretty well loved too. You know, that was definitely the more of the loved ones. Johnny, did you have any others that you had, or anybody else?
You can finish, Johnny. I'll let you finish yours.
The only other one that I saw was something from Cuphead. They released something called Mouse PI for Hire, and it's like a first-person shooter Cuphead. Legit.
I can't tell. Are you teasing me, or is that a real thing?
I'm not teasing you. I'll put a link in our.
It's from Fumi Games, so
for people.
It's not the Cuphead devs, but there are devs from Cuphead on it.
Oh, that's why I was confused then. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it looks straight up Cuphead.
Oh, is this Mouse? I've seen. Okay,
Yeah,
I think they extended the title because I feel like I saw something. Because this is like Mickey Mouse the Shooter or something. Or I remember seeing this a little while ago.
Okay.
But it's like the art style is. Just it cracks me up that it even exists, but I love the fact that they went this hard on it. But yeah, Mouse PI for Hire must be like the full title. I feel like
there you go. Yeah, I'm looking more at it. It's more Mickey Mouse. You're right.
Yeah. It's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
I will say names. Come on, guys. Aura, History Untold. Even the people at the event teased they were like, what does History Untold mean? Like what are we talking about here? Some of these
Is
names,
it history? at
remember,
that
it used to
point?
be
Like-
Shadows of Warrening, War of the Shadows of the Gears of that. You know, it was all these really
Yeah.
epic, gritty titles, and now everything's so soft that I'm all, wait, what is this again? Hardling, Hardling is Forspoken. You know, you get these
Yeah.
weird titles where you're like, what the hell? What did you
Ge-
guys think about
generic.
Well,
Batman?
then you can go with
Arkham?
Vessel of Hatred. So, you know, there's both sides
Oh,
now.
dude,
Names
I
are
love
hard.
the hard hitting. I like the hard hitting one. Well, I got to straight up say, I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is 10 times the name as Red. There's something about Assassin's Creed Red that just does not Red. I
That
don't know
doesn't
why.
mean
Was that their
Doesn't
code
mean
names
anything.
or?
Yeah, it was a code name. Right?
I don't know, but I mean, dude, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't say enough, does it? It's kind
No.
of red. It's like in and of itself, but shadows is evocative within the context of assassins too, because you know they're lurking in the shadows. and
What
stuff.
about Batman Arkham Shadow? Arkham Shadow. Batman Arkham.
Hey, that looked better than I thought it was going to. I was actually kind of shocked. We were
Really?
watching that together with Co and Zeke, the Drop Frames group, and we were just like, "Fuck, this actually looks good."
Oh,
What the
okay.
hell?
And
Like
that's
this,
Quest 3, right? That's meta.
it is
They
Quest
paid
3
for it.
exclusive, yeah.
Okay.
And that's where I think once that was realized, everyone is kind of like,
Right.
right? And the beginning of it was like, oh, this is the Batman IP in VR. That kind of sucks. Then they showed, you know, it's the Batman Arkham games, and you're walking around a room, you know, solving, being a detective,
Right.
and like, oh, that kind of works. And then it's first person Arkham combat in VR, and like, it looks cool. We'll see how that actually plays, and if you know people can actually do that without throwing up. I think that'll be the biggest test. But
That's the thing. Whenever I see a VR game, I'm wondering so many things like, how's the movement?
yeah,
You know, is it free like joystick? Is it teleport? Whatever. They never really show exactly. It's all sort of not cinematic, but a bit more streamlined.
Well, it's almost like this streamlined, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, as somebody who's worked with VR companies, because I did, you know, get motion sick all the time and try to figure out what works and what doesn't. I think the original Batman experience was fine, and I really enjoyed that one that was years ago. But I do feel that in particular, segmenting VR when it's already segmented so much and being like it's only going to be available on this. I'm sure the devs got paid whatever they got paid, and I think that's really good because VR is hard to make. I mean, every VR dev I know, I used to be religious in the VR Reddit, and then the devs were just like, guys, there's just nothing, there's no money, and WMR is supposedly shuttering the driver support in the future, and so there's headsets that may not work. There's all these problems, so it makes sense that they went with Meta, but at the same
That's
time,
where the money is.
yeah, it's where the money is. But the standalone 4090 run in VR is a difference that is so tangible. It is hard to describe to somebody until they see, you know, what a game can look like in VR that, you know, has the power to drive it versus a Meta, which I have no issue with them. I want to see VR succeed. I think VR has so many problems. So like every time I put it on, because I have all the headsets, and whenever I tell Johnny it's like right there, and the idea of putting it on is too much for the extra 2 inches to reach over to. I'm like, yeah, I'll just play this game Pancake, or, you know, I'll play another game. I love VR, man. I want it to succeed, but I think we need a complete revision of that kind of stuff.
I agree. Yeah.
Any others in here that Kingdom Come?
But they did
Deliverance?
they
Oh, go
did
ahead.
show Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Talk about bad names.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Seriously, yeah.
True.
No,
That is a
it's
bad name.
it's sparking because it's got 2 exclamation points, doesn't
Oh
it?
my
Oh,
yeah. It's got at least it's got one there for sure. That's so crazy.
I'm a little lost with these titles because we've had so many iterations of the same
Right.
story, and I love it, dude. I'm the first sucker for, you know, Dragon Ball Z,
Mhm.
and I've played a bunch of these, but it kind of feels like this is very similar to
Yeah.
the, you know.
Well, they're
I-
selling to the same fan base at this point,
Yeah.
right? Like the same
Yeah.
people are going to buy the same game that was released 2 years ago.
Mhm.
It's not a
It's almost like a FIFA.
yeah
Version.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like most of those games kind of do that now. Like all the Bandai Namco anime Naruto
Yep.
games are like kind of the same thing and have been for about a decade, unfortunately. I think that they had that One Piece game, whenever that was, that 2 years ago, a year ago.
Yeah, a
It
couple
was like the
years
single
ago.
player, and like it was okay. It wasn't anything, crazy. But yeah, I kind of put all those games in the same camp, unfortunately.
They all feel like Borderlands 3, the Dragon Ball game, to me. Like they
Yeah.
all just feel a repeat of whatever. And my most successful video for subscribers ever by a long shot, other than the podcast, was a Dragon Ball game that I reviewed. Like I never
Yeah.
expected it, and I think it was because no other big reviewer reviewed it. Like, so
Sure,
it
that makes
went
sense.
really well for the channel. I was like, oh god damn, there's a lot of people like this, and I enjoyed it. But then every time I played another one, I was like, oh my god, they are
Well,
identical.
It sucks too, because I remember when the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm games first came out, and they were like the first of their type, and it was like, oh
Yes.
shit, this is kind of cool. This is delivering the experience that the fans of these type of games want.
Mhm.
The formula has not changed in 20 years, it feels like. for
Exactly.
those
No, it's so
games.
true. It's so true.
And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Any
Not
any-
even that, but the story itself is the same.
It's the same, totally.
You know,
yeah.
it's the same story we all know.
Yeah.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, yeah, there's not much difference. Anything else in here?
So I have 3, so not to extend this podcast forever.
No, we
Um,
go a long time. That's actually what I was going to say is I
Okay.
think, JP, you stream, and you had told your stream you were going to be delayed, but you're still going to stream today, right? So we don't want to hold
Yeah,
you.
I'll stream whenever we finish. That's not
Okay.
a big deal. Yeah.
Go for it, Ebontis.
So one of the first ones, the art style caught me a while ago, and this trailer sold me more, is the first Berserker Kazan.
Yeah.
Still digging the action games, but this one truly looks like it's gonna be. It's got that like, it's like animated but detailed. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what mix of art style they're doing here. And then I saw Ben Starr is actually doing the voice, which was kind of a new addition that I saw recently. That one, just for like that one may be much more Perry related. So for the Dodgers, it may not be your thing. But it is, I don't know, just looking at just kind of the actual gameplay and fighting a boss, they've done, from what I've seen, looks like they've taken what looked like kind of more conceptual art style in the first trailer I saw and took it into just actually live action gameplay, and they've kind of captured it really, really well.
Yep.
It's
That's,
got the 300 blood splatter thing.
Yes, it does.
Going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I think wasn't the big news push for that, or PR push, that Ben Starr is doing the main character voice, the voice actor from Final Fantasy 16. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I saw that pop out. And then in a similar action fashion, since you guys covered a lot that I actually do want to play, so I'm glad one of you mentioned Reanimal, because that one was like my inside, like Limbo and Inside are still some of my favorites, and then Concord as well in that vein. But
Stop.
Just
what?
Concord?
Not Concord. Sorry. What am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Okay.
But you're
No,
not
it's
talking
not-
about
no.
Concord, right?
No. Like I've
No
been
one's
like
talking about
I've been looking.
Concord.
Exactly.
Well,
I've been
Not
looking.
even the 500 people playing it right now.
No,
on
I've been
release.
looking. I've been peeking at the review scores for Concord. No, what is
Yeah.
the one I'm thinking of?
I
It's,
don't know, but that was a
Sorry,
combo
that
breaker
is
as
one
shit
of
for
those
me, man.
things.
My brain
It's
was
not
like,
like the
what?
That's a
other.
fair stop. That's a fair stop, because that is a big.
So you weren't
that is
talking
a big
about
flub.
Concord. You were talking about what? I got the list here. Cairn?
No, that one actually does look cool. No, it's one I played earlier. Cocoon. Cocoon's a fantastic game.
wasn't
Okay.
there a
Okay,
Very,
I'm
Cocoon
okay
very
with that.
different.
I'm
on
okay with
Game
that.
Pass?
Mhm.
Is this a different?
For what
Anyway.
now?
So Cocoon is from like the makers of Inside and Limbo. They split.
Oh, okay.
The creative
okay,
guy
yeah,
went
yeah.
to go make Cocoon, and that was what I was thinking of, because it was like Inside, Limbo, Cocoon, but I said Concord, and
Oh.
I broke Carrick, and then Cocoon, and then the Reanimal has that same like really
Oh,
really cool
vibe.
vibe, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Did
So you guys said
Carrick's
that one.
parser just spit out an error. in
Yeah,
real
man.
time.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
It's like,
everybody watching couldn't
Stop.
figure out why it froze, but I was like,
There was just
my
a blue
brain was literally going, you need
Dude,
to listen to his voice echoing. Is that really what he said?
Blue screen. I blue screen.
By the way, if you like Concord, I actually don't have an issue. I just completely couldn't believe you had said it.
yeah,
But
no,
I don't
that's
have
fair.
an issue with
Yeah.
people liking
Yeah.
Concord. It's whatever.
I saw this morning, because Dan's Gaming and Co both did sponsored streams for that for the early access, and I was curious if they would get re-upped for release this morning, and they were both sponsored to play that, and I was just like,
Oh, JP, so that was in early access. That's why. So because this is the game that was in I
Concord.
think
Concord
Game
had
Pass.
like 3 or 4 days early access, and now it's out today officially.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
no, sorry, I got
Johnny,
my wires
you
mixed.
got your
I thought we
C's
were
mixed up.
talking about Cocoon.
Yeah.
Cocoon.
Oh, Cocoon.
No.
Oh, no, that's a puzzle game. It's like 5
Yeah, it's
hours
completely
long.
different.
But it's,
Here we go.
I knew it.
All right, let's
It's all
go.
right.
Let's
It's all right.
if you
Yeah.
haven't played Cocoon, it's damn
good.
near like a 10 out of 10 for me. I love that game. So
Yeah, it's a very good game. Yeah,
Uh,
Concord though not doing well.
Yeah, it is not. And that's the other thing is, all jokes aside, same thing with Redfall. It's like whenever you see a game, and it's not even more so with Concord, because Concord doesn't have the technical issues. It's like when you look at it, and you're like, wow, did that just miss everybody? Like it's almost like they're playing a different game, and you see that flub or somebody kicking a field goal, it goes off the side, and you're like, whoa, I know they know how to do it, and it sucks. I mean, whatever they were trying to do, just, it didn't hit, and we'll have to see how that pans out. I have a feeling it won't pan out well because of the company's worries of like continually trying to turn games around. Not everybody can be No Man's Sky, that kind, or Sea of Thieves even. That kind of shit is really rare. We've gotten accustomed to it because it's in the zeitgeist of discussion, but it's like, dude,
It's very hard to do.
oh, it's very hard. And I mean, to try to like reverse course, go back in, Concord at least has some solid gameplay. I think it's just really unremarkable. And
Yes.
that's sort of hard because you almost want to be on one or the other side of the other, so you get some people talking about it.
The worst thing any type of media can do is be boring, right?
Yeah, it's
Like,
fine.
Apathy is terrible. Anything else on there?
Phantom Blade Zero was another one. We got a trailer for that a while ago through PlayStation, and then we actually got to see some gameplay. Actually looks smoothly animated, but I hear that thing's like 2026. And the final thing, I just kind of wanted to get your guys' takes on Avowed. Just curious what you guys see.
Yeah, that's a good. I saw IGN put out an article today where it's like, hey, we finally got to play Avowed, and it's good. And that, like, the conversation around that game has been, the opposite.
Yeah.
We actually had oh god, I'm forgetting the creative director of that. We had her on Drop Frames a while back, and it's such an interesting game to talk about because I think everyone looks at it and it's like, kind of what we just said. The worst thing a game can be is boring.
Right.
I think everyone kind of looks at it and they're like, yeah, looks okay. Like it's not hurting anybody. It's not, it's not doing anything crazy. It's not.
Yep.
It exists. And so the interview it kind of mimicked that, where all of the questions were kind of lukewarm because I think reception of the game has been lukewarm. But maybe this delay that they put on this game, which I think the PR response was that they were getting it out of the way for Game Pass releases because this winter was stacked for Game Pass, which, okay. Maybe that delay is like whatever, that they've had time to work on it is for the better, which is great. If that IGN piece is, I have not read it or watched the preview for it.
I saw two positive, and I saw the IGN one, and
yeah,
they definitely talk about the storytelling being good and the choices and all that. And then IGN and another one said that the combat was better than and they brought up Guardians, weirdly enough, even though I don't think Guardians combat is stellar, but they brought up that the trailers and what they've changed has ended up being better. Xbox is 30 FPS. That was confirmed.
Yeah, that was
which that to me, when I look at a console and I look at what I'm like, yeah, whatever. We pretty much, like, at least from what I saw, I was like, that is exactly what I expected from that one. But I would be apathetic towards it. Not even in a bad way. I want to play it. But I also love Pillars, but I never really loved the world. I liked the games. I'm a huge Pillars of Eternity fan. But the world itself, which I think, this is going to sound really weird, but it almost feels like they thought their world was the pull. And so they were like, it's in the world of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's a CRPG kind of game. That's like a isometric. And so saying first person, it didn't garner, like you said, the attention. It was like, oh, okay. And Outer Worlds, let's be honest, Outer Worlds for a while did the same thing. I mean, people were still, there was a little bit hype, but they were like, what is this really? And then, you know, later on it sort of caught on. We'll just have to see, man. If the writing's good, at the very minimum, you'll be able to play that and maybe enjoy a couple different playthroughs, but it's not really doing much.
I think Doom Reaper in chat kind of nails it. If Avowed wasn't on Game Pass, it would be an easy skip. I think Game Pass, you know, to flip that into a positive, I think Game Pass is like the perfect platform for a game like Avowed.
And you know why else? Because
hopefully that gives it the legs.
Exactly. And if it does well on Game Pass, like people start saying, hey, whoa, this is good.
This game's good.
Then you start getting the spool up and it's like, okay, well then if everybody's talking about it, it is worth jumping into. And Back 4 Blood was that way. Back 4 Blood had some issues, and I believe it was Game Pass day one. I could be wrong on that, but
sounds right.
I think so. And they turned around and fixed some stuff. We've seen it on Game Pass before, where a company would be like, okay, you know, there's some things to fix, or it does really well, and people jump in. So yeah, it is weirdly. I don't know, man. That's a weird one. Apathetic is a good term.
Yeah.
And then, what did you guys think? I wanted to bring up Civilization. Okay, so listen. I know it wasn't going to change. I know it wasn't going to be like look like Cyberpunk or whatever.
Yeah.
But they showed it, and as a big Civ fan, I just did that thing where I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's
looks like Civ.
Yeah, they talked about some really cool stuff, but man, maybe there's no place you can go. I mean, maybe there isn't, just because of the graphical presentation and the format.
It's not I wouldn't call Civ an art. I mean, I guess I would call it an RTS in some form, but like, it's so hard to make an interesting looking RTS or like a top down
turn-based
game
of any kind, like
or a
that,
turn-based. It's, I don't know how to make, I don't even know where to start to make that look like something unique.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're running into. That being said, I do think it looks very pretty. I think that the things that they have running, like the animations of the flora and fauna of Civ 7 looks good. But the second that they started building things, I was like, Civ game, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you've got like the RTSs of like Age of Mythology Retold, Our History Untold. Put it all together with like Civilization of Mythology History Unretold, and just be done. And then that's your RTS.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult place, because I would agree with JP. I actually don't know how I can bitch about it and say that it's not grabbing me. But if you were on the team and they said, okay, what do you want to do to bring this into the future? I'd be like, anybody else want to go? Because I have no answer for how you would do that. I do think the grid look, because like as a huge fan of Age of Wonders, they had a bunch of stuff they improved with, like nesting of menus and a bunch of things that they did well. And then you have all these other games that are doing well, but the one thing they do is all look the same. They just all look the same. The presentation style just hasn't changed up. And I don't know. I don't know if they can, I guess. And then let's talk about it. This is probably the hit of the show, right? I don't think anybody saw this coming. Probably the biggest news of the show, Masters of Albion. I'm just joking.
That was weird.
Peter
Did you see the story about
how many on this podcast played Black and White? Just curious.
Yeah, I played it long time ago when that debuted. Yeah.
What were you going to say to JP? Did we see an article?
Oh, yeah. There was an article that I don't know who it was. Maybe it was PC Game or something. But they asked him, hey, do you have the copyright for Albion?
Oh, I heard about that.
And he was like, I haven't really looked into that.
Yeah, he's like, I should probably get some lawyers on this somewhere in the past 6 months,
like,
but nope, I didn't do that.
You would think that someone like me would, he was like, you'd think someone like me would put lawyers on something like that, but I haven't yet. Huh.
Well, Microsoft and them were,
crazy.
I mean, he was there for a while, so hopefully they figure that out and it's not an issue. Remember when Bethesda went after somebody for Scrolls, right? Minecraft wasn't it Minecraft's developer? Wasn't it the guy who originally? It was Notch, wasn't it? Didn't Notch try to make his game?
He had a game called Scrolls.
He had a game called Scrolls, and Bethesda was like,
I remember that.
We own Scrolls. By the way,
that's crap.
And WB with their Nemesis system, the IP bullshit that we see the patents. I'm sorry, it's a word I can name as long as it's not identical. I don't think single words should be able to
Didn't
be
Monster
copyrighted.
do that with some crap too? I
Oh
think.
yeah, Monster's done it as I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Monster's come after people for
It's
sure.
like pick your beverage, everybody.
Listen, it looks like black and white, which I was a huge fan of. Picking everything looked like black and white. The hand picking up villagers, all that stuff, except no creature. Really janky third. It's very early from what I saw for the 3D part in particular. But I do love games that let you control from the overworld and jump in. There's been there was a Command and Conquer. Was it Renegade?
Yeah, Renegade.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Renegade.
Yeah.
Dude, I love those.
That game was cool.
I love the idea of doing the zoom in and taking on the grunt work. But boy, that looked rough.
The second I saw Peter Molyneux come out, there was definitely a part of me of like, why the fuck did Jeff give him any sort of a platform? Like, it really made me wonder, like, what is that? Did Peter like pay for that, or was it? I mean, they said that they had a conversation and they were out to lunch, so maybe they're just friends. I don't know. With how much like weird shit that Peter Molyneux has done, and whatever Goddess and that whole drama, that like, I don't know, it was weird to see him come out on stage.
And then there was the mobile game. Both had oddities. I will say that they weren't. I don't hold as much against him as I've definitely found a lot of people do. And a lot of people still remember him talking about growing trees in Fable. And I'm like, listen, if we're going to come after somebody, you go after Sony with the Killzone 2 trailer. I'll stand right in next to you and we'll just beat them all. Like that, if we want to go and start holding people accountable for that kind of stuff. But those things you're talking about, those are real. And yeah, I assume, they talked and maybe money exchange hand. We know that happens in the game trailers. They talked about the ad sales. I don't know about this one. I think honestly, man, he got a pretty good applause, which I was actually waiting for when he came out. I was trying, because those people in the audience, if they're not clapping, you're like, oh, and they actually I think that's the other thing. Molyneux shouldn't be a businessman at all. As an idea man, I actually love a lot of his ideas. I grew up on Populous and stuff like I like those kind of things. It's just that as a businessman, they've all been bad. Like all of when he's in charge of a business and has a new idea, they're just not good. So, but I'm excited to see it. It's just really early. Christ, that thing looked
the whole thing
rough.
was strange. That was a really weird.
That's a good point about it looking strange though, and why it was there. I hadn't even thought about that until you mentioned it, but that is a question.
I think Jeff was maybe expecting it to be like a bigger pop. And I guess if it gets, from Jeff's point of view, if it gets media coverage, whether good or bad, it's still media coverage about, hey, this thing was at X show. Yeah. The show being mine. So maybe at that point, it's not necessarily is it good or bad, but is it going to pop? And we're talking about it. So maybe it did pop. I don't know.
I also give a kudo? I'm pretty open about, I'm not a fan of the Game Awards, how they're I'm not a fan of a bunch of stuff that goes on, but I will give a huge kudo to Jeff for letting, and I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Shocks?
Is that the Unreal Tournament / she was the gamer?
Well, she's a friend of mine. She's a esports commentator. She came from the League of Legends scene.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, but she does Counter-Strike, she does Valorant, she does
huge kudos to him for shuttling that off and just letting her. I actually thought that was huge because in my Discord, and we're never negative about that kind of stuff unless it's an event. Most of the time nobody's talking about it, but multiple people are like, oh, Jeff's doing this one too. And then he handed it off and I was like, oh, that was cool. Just be like, okay, she can do that. And she did a good job. I thought that was actually awesome because it puts new faces in there that, those things aren't always remembered. It's like Jeff announced this or Jeff, which I'm sure he's tired of. Because I've seen some tweets to him where I'm like, oh my God, that would suck to be,
she definitely got a little bit of the ad content, right? She had that 10-cent award where they gave 10 cent an award for
green living or what? I don't remember what it was.
For having the greenest game. And it's what the, what is this
that did get a weird discussion in my Discord. 10 cent?
Yeah. So that was a little weird. But I think even before Shocks did it this year, was it Sydney Goodman? I think was doing.
Sydney did
she
one.
did part of Game Awards, right?
Yeah, she did Game Awards and
Yeah.
I think Gamescom stuff last year as well.
Do you know who else I think did a phenomenal job and they played her pregnancy off amazing was PC Gamer Award Frankie?
Oh,
Dude, that was hilarious because I was like, why is Frankie in her room? Like, what? This is such a weird thing. And then it panned out and she was like, they were nice enough to let me just record this in my house. I was like, dude, that's awesome. I really actually like her presentation. I like
She's
almost
great.
all of them, but it was cool to have that sort of change up for sure from Jeff
Totally.
sort of rolling it off to other people.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, anything else on here? Johnny, do you have
What-
any? Oh, go ahead.
What I was
Go
gonna
for it.
say, where do you guys sit on? I'm a Path of Exile fiend, so much so
yeah,
that
there we
like
go.
I'm like
Oh.
10,000 hours in the game fiend.
I'm not that. I didn't play 1, and it went so long that I didn't. But having finally got back into Diablo 4, some here and there, and like it feels like this is the time with a fresh, clean slate that I November
had her
15th
baby
early
today.
access.
Oh, she did. I didn't know
So
that.
I
That's
apologize.
awesome.
Yeah, abbreviated reviews. Indio from our Discord just said that. I apologize. Continue. Sorry, Ebontis. I just want to get that out.
Oh no, you're good. It feels like November 15th, like early access for like 2. This feels like I can't miss this one because it is like the fresh, clean start. So I feel like I've got to because I mean a buddy of mine played a ton of hours in it and always kind of got into it, and I've just always been bouncing around too much. But
Yeah.
it's definitely got me intrigued. And if they can, the one thing that always scared me was like the giant skill hell. If there's some balance to that being even a bit more reasonable, probably. But I mean, I'm okay to dive in once I learn. But either way, like give me early access November, I'll be here. I'm definitely for it.
Yeah. It for me that date dropping was probably the biggest like self news I think from the whole show. Just because we had been the Path of Exile community just didn't know. They sent out I think alpha invites a week or 2 ago, but those are really super heavily NDA'd, so no one can talk about what they're playing
Right.
at all, or they will just like completely remove you from the program, I think. But yeah, that coming out in November is probably my most hyped thing. I was pretty excited too for Rivals, for Marvel Rivals. I was a big Overwatch guy back in the day, and that's basically what Rivals is.
Yep.
I'm also a giant Marvel
People are enjoying
fanboy, so
that,
that's
yeah.
put those two together, and I'm there. The characters they showed looked cool with Captain America and Bucky.
Winter, yeah.
So that looked great. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
The Dune Awakening. Where are we at on that one?
Yeah, I have friends that are super into that, and it didn't do anything for me. I'm not big in the Dune zeitgeist, I think, or the Dune fandom as well. So maybe that has a lot to do with it. But I couldn't get super excited for any of it.
I was like, I enjoyed the couple movies recently, but it's more. I don't know if I have time for it. It does get to the point of how much time you've got to try and play one more ongoing thing, and that gets where it's tough. But I mean, I'm kind of intrigued if they can pull it off. I think it's one where if I play it for a while, I could get an idea. Right now, it's just something I'm more following than anything, I think.
Yeah.
Johnny, Path of Exile. How did that date hit you?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to see what they do with it. If it's going to be a more streamlined, more casual experience.
Mm-hmm.
I played recently, I got into it quite a lot and played like 100 hours for the first time in the
Damn.
game. And I did like a full run, pretty much unlocked everything with one build. Was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So what I've seen looks a little bit less about the big numbers of enemies and a bit more maybe detailed. So maybe less enemies, a bit more focus on mechanics and graphics. Looks great. So I'm excited to see what they do with it, and really open to see where they take it. I think it will be quite a lot different than PoE 1, because I think they keep it running, right, JP? PoE
Yes,
1
PoE 1 will
just-
run at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. And do people get access to their, cosmetics and things they've bought throughout this time?
So I want to say when it first initially launched, they said that cosmetics will carry over. I think that's still the case. There's been some confusion because when it was first announced, they had a different game director. And then the person that was directing the game basically was like, I'm more of a business guy now. And so they
Yeah.
kind of passed it off to someone else, which was a good thing.
Yes.
Ultimately. And a smart move, I think, by that individual, because the game Path of Exile 1 has only gotten infinitely better within the past 2 seasons because of that change. He was very, very strong-willed to not have certain things added into the game, and now in the most recent update for Path of Exile, they added the in-game currency exchange, which is basically an auction house, which is like, just that alone in the game is like monumental to be added to. And so that same group, that's Rory and Jonathan, I think, are the game directors for PoE 1 and PoE 2 respectively. And they're kind of working hand in hand. So I think the idea, to bring it full circle to your question, I think the idea is still to carry over all the MTX. I hope so, as someone who's done way too much money in that game, like 5 digits of MTX in that game. I really hope it carries over. And I think a lot of the community hopes so as well, but easier said than done, right? Like the games are obviously 2 separate games, whereas initially they were going to be the same game.
Yeah, 100%. Some basic stuff like the tabs, I would expect that 100% to be there, because for people who don't know, you can buy specific tabs for different resources, and they are specifically crafted to display them really well and, you know, contain them really well. They did a good job with those.
Yeah, it's all quality of life stuff. There's no like pay to win in the game apart from those tabs, which depends on your definition of pay to win. So
it's so weird because even just sitting here listening to you guys talk about it, you know, I've tried to get into that game a couple times and I don't know
it's
what
hard.
it is. It just doesn't, I don't know. I like the idea of, I know some people don't like the complex skills, you know, and all the powers, but I actually sort of think that's what sells that game.
If anything,
To
like, don't let my community hear me say this, but like Diablo 4 is right there. Like, I don't know if you've played in the past since season 4.
I haven't played since season 4. I did play prior.
Okay. Check out Diablo, man. I've played Diablo season 4, and then I played season 5 last, I guess, 2 weeks ago when it launched. It's in a really good place now. They like have really addressed a lot of the issues, and they're adding a lot of stuff to that expansion, which is even more addressing the issues that people are having with that game. So it's in a really good spot, and everything that you just said that dissuades you from playing PoE isn't there in D4.
Diablo. Yeah.
And they're doing a pretty good job with it. You got to give a shout out to those devs, I think, for turning what that launch was, which the launch was okay, but it kind of missed the mark for a bunch of people. People are coming back on board, I think, for it.
I feel like Diablo 3's launch was worse with the auction house and stuff than Diablo 4.
Oh, 1,000%.
You know what I mean? So it's still a
monumental.
Step up. Yeah.
That was like one of the worst game launches in history.
Yeah. I just want Sacred 1 to get a remake, and then I'll be happy.
There you go.
I do like those games. It's just they're very hard sometimes to get into because I can sense, maybe it's as a reviewer or whatever, when I start to sense the grind.
The loop.
Loop. Then I start itemizing that loop almost and then critiquing it. And we do have some questions. Speaking of critiquing, I want to get through these so these guys can go, because we definitely have a bunch of stuff to that we would normally talk about. Like somebody said Floatopia, which was Floatopia, which looked phenomenal graphically. That was the monster or the Pokemon Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah, Animal Crossing. Yeah,
with current graphics, that thing looked phenomenal. They're saying here that the entire website shut down for the early beta. They opened up signups and it completely killed their website.
You got to think that like Nintendo and the Pokemon company see that type of shit and they're like, why aren't we doing?
Because they're still smoking the same pot that doesn't put game chat. They're all what?
Yeah. I guess the reason is because they turn around and look at the giant pile of money.
Yeah, when you're smoking the money,
I couldn't have been more annoyed. It took them, when they finally said, "Oh yeah, we activated Bluetooth on the Switch." I'm like, it was sitting in my original Switch the whole damn time.
Dude, I'm telling you, Switch 2 is gonna have some yarn and 2 styrofoam cups to talk to your friends. Like those guys, and it is when you make. There was no competition. The great thing now as somebody who has Windows devices, Android devices, handhelds, I'm super excited to see Nintendo have to try to figure out how to look and price their device to where, I mean, I get that that they offer their own first-person exclusives and all that. They definitely do. But if you get powerful handhelds who are going to emulate it, they'll crack it, they'll figure it. It's like Nintendo needs to deliver a device that is in some way current. And I joke, but this is not a joke. If they catch up 10 years ago, they will still be ahead. Because 10 years ago they launched, or not launched, it was a little bit after that. But still, if you look at where everybody else was with friends groups and all that kind of stuff, they didn't even do that. If they got within 5 years, I would be beyond excited. And I want the Switch too. I just want to see it. I want it to. I'm tired of playing these games.
It's one of the most exciting things, I think, in the next year to see what that is.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Just to see where they're going, and then will that balloon, you know, will you then see the Steam Decks and the Windows devices explode because they're not nailing it, or will you see them?
Yeah,
and that will help. That'll make them be competitive too. And you won't get a Legion or a ROG Ally. Fuck that. But you won't get these. You won't get these companies who release things where the battery takes, you know, lasts 1 hour. They'll start figuring that stuff out. The competition will be there from a major provider, which is going to be exciting. Real quick, let's go through these questions. They're super fast. Yapper says, Carrick, the weird embargo for Black Myth didn't seem, these are patron questions, didn't seem to impact it and sold a huge amount. Do you expect a sequel? We answered that. Yappers, it was actually the first thing we talked about it, I think. Abernathy, Carrick, I'm seeing more and more conversation around review scores and possibly using terms like yours. And I noticed newer YouTubers seem to be moving to that. How do you feel about that? Are there any hazards you can see that I should be aware of as a newer tuber? If you mean worded scores, I think worded scores are good, but context is needed in reviews regardless. So the score means almost nothing. You have to look at the context, and I would say don't copy anybody. I've seen people say, oh, I like your scores. I'm going to do wait for sale. And then they change the last two words. It's like, just those work for me. That's why I made them. They work for me. So make your own words, whatever works for you. But I would say, don't ask me what the fuck to do. You need to start making videos, because if you're not making shit, somebody else is. Josh Kerr says, JP went to a sanctuary recently in a video. How did that come about? Yeah, so I saw this. How did that come about?
So where did I'm trying to think of the connections there. This is like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing.
Yeah.
So I used to the first thing I ever did on the internet was a podcast for World of Warcraft called ArenaCast, which was focused on the PvP and like MLG, because I used to work for MLG. This was like 2008, I think. So I did that, and a friend of a friend of a friend who now works at the PC, what is the PC that sponsors OTK? They're a big PC manufacturer
Maximum, now. Or
no, it starts with an S.
Whatever that. Saber?
Starforge, yes, Starforge. Yeah, so that friend who used to be a mod for an OTK member now works at Starforge, connected me with Maya, and then I had been a long time fan. Maya is the person that runs the animal conservation in South Texas. I had been a long-time fan of her and have watched the Alveus stuff for, I guess, like 2 or 3 years at this point. And I ended up, they were doing a big drive fundraiser for, they got wolf dogs on their property. And they had like a big 250,000 square foot enclosure for them that they were raising money for. I ended up donating to that. One of her people who was friends with the person that works at Starforge saw my name when I donated and said, hey, that's JP. I'm a huge fan of him. She said, oh, that's great. Does he live anywhere near? Yes, he just moved to Austin. Great. We should have him out here. And that's the whole story.
Oh, damn. Wow. No, that's actually really cool. So, dude, I'm telling you, it is who you know. Like, it was a long connection of who you know. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. Bart over Homer. I don't know if I agree with that, but anyway, Carrick and JP love role playing. Can you guys explain what role playing offers over video game RPGs? Obviously, there's more flexibility, but is there something else? Well, that's an entire podcast.
Yeah.
First of all, if you guys have to go, feel free, and I can always keep it. But RPG, what is like pen and paper, dude? So much. Is there something that you've ever encountered? He's wanting to know what is like pen and paper and Dungeons and Dragons offer over a video game
games?
RPG? Yeah.
I mean, the limit is your imagination. I think in D&D,
Yep.
it's the simplest way to put it is
Yeah.
if you can imagine it, you can at least prompt the idea to do it and see if it works in whatever game that you're trying to play. When it comes to the game mechanics itself of D&D or whatever pen and paper game it is. When you play a video game, you're beholden to the world and character that you are playing in said world. And the rules of said world. And like D&D, you make your own rules ultimately. So
I saw a clip actually, and I'm not one who's really ever played tabletops. I would be curious to do it at some point, just none of my friends ever do. Travis is actually really, really big into him. Tie Guy Travis. He loves those. But I saw Deborah Wall and then John Bernthal.
Punisher. Yeah.
Yeah, and she did a little clip of him and literally live on the spot almost did it. Now I thought that was one of the best quick ways to show somebody kind of what it would be like. Like if look up that interview between those two, it's in there somewhere. I just saw the clip. That's actually kind of a cool thing to see.
It's on. I watched that. The show itself. It's on Real Ones with John Barenthal on Spotify.
Okay.
Yeah. Toward the later half of that, it's like a 2-hour podcast. I think it's good.
I would say also that there, other than programming procedure generation, possibly the feedback loop in role playing is just a completely different beast because it's up to you and the DM and what changes you make to the game world. Like JP was saying with imagination, there's something about, so I do all mine off the cuff, even our 30-year game is off the cuff. I mean, I think about it and I take notes, but I don't know what they're going to do every time we play. And there's something that they do that feeds into what I come up with that is there. It'll probably never be matched in video. Well, I'm sure it won't be matched in a video game. There's just something about the feedback loop between a DM and a player that is, it's awe-inspiring if it's done well, and it can ruin a game if it's done poorly. It can make it so that everybody's antagonistic. But I got to tell you, there's nothing better. Like, I mean, I have a couple, martial arts. I like to teach martial arts. I like to do airsoft. But D&D is still probably the top. Like, there's something about it that when we start playing, like, we'll just do a one-off where what kind of game do we play? I don't know. Let's come up with four nouns. Vampires, fucking futuristic, submarines, blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like, let's do it. And there's something so magical because no game will ever be able to encompass that. No video game will ever be able to encompass it. It's a phenomenal experience if you have friends. As Ebontis was saying, the big thing is time. Time is getting friends together. Dude, I don't even have, they're not even married. And I'll be like, hey, do you want to, section it off time? And it's really difficult. And then Marv is me, says Carrick, Patreon since day one. Oh, thank you. Just enter the Discord. It's everything you said it would be. How do you review games and be in Discord that much and also do all the other shit? Do you ever get tired? Thank you for the thousands of hours.
Does he ever sleep is the question I think you're asking.
No, and I was a 21-year-old girl prior to this podcast. That's what age and lack of sleep does. Makes you grow a beard instantly. I don't know. I love games, man. I love games. If it ever goes away, you're going to see less content for me and I'll go away. I'll just leave. But I love games. I love development. Dude, my love for games is unimaginable. Like when we're in there talking about games, I will then get off of the Discord and then go talk about games with somebody else or write about a game or program in Unreal or then go, like, it is everything I think about outside of, martial arts or my wife,
Of course. Let's carve out a place for the wife.
It's interesting the way it's interesting the way you say like you just love games because I'm watching some people like Destiny creators. There's a Discord that I'm in with like quite a few creators for that. And as that is definitely getting a little long in the tooth, people are trying to branch out. And some people are like, I really don't like other games. So I'm like, how? It was like, I mean, that's one. I mean, for me in my mindset, like I got 8-bit Nintendo, had like NES Golf. And then when I found Mega Man and Mario Brothers 3 and Ocarina and Chrono Trigger, and it's just like my list of stuff that I have played and my experiences in games have been extremely special because I think the art form is special. It's something that you get to interact with,
Yeah.
that you get to be part of, and it's not like, you know, reading a book or watching a movie. And like, as you said, you love Marvel. I've loved the MCU, good, bad, and otherwise. I'll watch them all. But I was like, there are moments that when I'm holding the controller, whether it's a fist pump beating a boss, or I'm playing like the 2018 Spider-Man and I'm like streaming and I'm crying at the same time. I'm like, this just all of it happens in games, and it's kind of crazy that this medium can do so many different things.
Yeah, that's a good point. JP, do you have anything to add to that for you? Like, how do you do all the stuff without getting burned out?
I mean, I think it's a really long conversation. It's also something I put a lot of time thinking about, being that I've done this for, I think, 16 years, coming up in February of next year.
Oh,
I think burnout is something you just deal with ultimately. And I, for the longest time, didn't. I just continued to do what I did, but I was burned out.
Mhm.
I didn't like realize it. And so actually I think it was 2022, I just took a month off
Oh,
and
smart.
just said like, I
Nice.
planned it. I was very vocal about like, guys, I'm going to not do anything work related for a month.
Right.
And it was honestly one of the best things I've ever done. Like, funny enough, that was, I think, the month right around the time that the Final Shape came out. Or no,
Oh.
not the Final Shape. What was two
No, that
expansions
was
ago?
that was
Beyond Light?
2 was no, yeah, 2 is Beyond Light, right? Because
Yeah,
there was
Beyond Light, yeah.
Beyond Light.
Yeah, it was right when that came out. So it was kind of a month of like just straight Destiny. I played League, I played Final Fantasy, and I honestly like fell back in love with games again. Is ultimately what happened on that break. So it's the type of thing where if you're in the industry long enough, like something's gonna burn you out. It just happens. And I think that's probably true with anything in life. No matter what you do, if you do something too much, if you involve yourself in a thing too much, you're going to eventually hit a limit of like, I don't want to do that today.
Yeah.
But the second that thing becomes like, if I don't do that, I don't make a living. Then you start to have that little friction. So the importance, I think, is just like realize when that's happening. And if you are lucky enough to have a job where it is something that is also your hobby, to have another hobby.
Yep.
Because if you don't have another outlet, it can get real bad real quick, especially if you start disliking that. And especially where I think the conversation around games are today, it's very easy to become that creator that's like, I'm angry at everything. I'm going to make that my whole shtick.
Yeah. Just
And that's
jaded.
where a lot of it
What's
is.
wrong with blah blah blah? What's
Yeah.
blah blah blah? I will also add that that's probably why, because I do have a shit ton of hobbies outside of video games that I don't
Yeah.
get burned out, but I know what burnout feels like, or at least what my version of burnout feels like, and I do make sure to be doing other stuff. But I will say this is not pipe and wind up Johnny's sails, but Friday podcasts are legit the juice for me. To me, I don't know what it is, probably because we do talk about role play. We start talking about other shit. We'll talk about science. I'll be like reading a Lawrence Krauss book, and we'll be talking about reality, and
Yeah.
there's something
Oh,
about
don't get me on science. Like, come on.
this is something that since I was a kid, Fridays were always like that. And once we created the podcast on Fridays, I was like, oh shit, that's what I was missing. And I love to hammer on a game that's shitty, but then I also love when a game is great.
Yep.
And so those two extremes are there. And then Johnny and I come in and we defrag. Sorry, I shouldn't say Johnny. Johnny and Silver and I come in on Fridays and we defrag. And it's glorious, but I think I'm also always watching out. I'm always watching out for it because I have seen it, or I see, even if I'm looking, but I also turn down a lot of stuff. I would say that's the other thing. I know a lot of people who seem to try to do, and I'm like, dude, just turn it down. And I will say also, I don't have any timelines. I don't do sponsors, so I don't have to worry about what anybody says. I can always say, I hate this fucking game, and somebody could be like, aren't you worried about sponsors? Don't have sponsors. I love this game. Did you get paid? Nope.
Yeah.
And there's no other discussion to it. It's like, you may think I'm wrong, but I can guarantee you that no money ever exchanged hands like that. And so there's no other outside shit. And also a healthy sense of humor, man. You got to tease everything. Because if you don't, you're going to be uncomfortable as shit in gaming, because gaming is rough. I mean, I don't mean rough physically. I mean, like you said, JP, with like the negativity of stuff and bad business, things that you love falling apart. It's like you always have to have your eye on this possible prize of another cool thing coming, or another cool person you want to talk to. And if you don't,
Yeah.
man, that's why you guys stream. I did that.
Yeah.
Streaming is a dude. That's
It's a
one of the
different
reasons why we
beast.
have. I've done it. It's horrible. You were talking about the fucking people saying you probably should do this, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I don't like streaming in that way. And I did a 24-hour Let's Stream in No Man's Sky day one,
Oof.
and I think that taught me 24 hours. And by the last hour, I had a ton of people watching. They were giving super, and I was like, okay, I'm done. And I remember thinking, wow, that was not the best decision that I've ever made.
Yeah.
And then getting out, I learned a lot, but you make a couple bad ones. Hopefully you learn. Johnny, as we wrap this up, I do want to thank you, man. Seriously.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it's been awesome. And I remember tit for tat, us going back and forth because I was having a hard time understanding you when you very first started podcast, learning English. Can't even tell, by the way. Like, you picked everything up. You even understand my weird slang. And it's been honestly a super pleasure to have you on the podcast. And JP, Ebontis, you guys as well. Like, this kind of stuff to me is
absolutely.
It makes my entire weekend fly because we're all just joking, having a good time. Maybe we disagree on something, but it's like tomorrow it'll be like, oh, there's another game coming out. We'll talk about that. We'll move on. And it's
That's
just
the best type. That's the way to
dude,
do it.
it's fucking awesome, man. I don't know how people let it drag them down, but you shouldn't. That's all I'm saying. You should
100%. And by
figure
the
out a
way,
way.
like what you guys do, JP, and what you do, man, just huge respect. I view you guys as like the trailblazers of like,
yeah, because I can do
like
either
gaming
one.
podcasts in a
Yeah.
way. It's just, it is something I do take inspiration of, like how to talk about games in a clean way. I think you guys always have good structure, staying on topic. You're much more professional than we are.
Yeah,
So that's huge respect.
That is
I
true.
appreciate that. Thank
That
you.
is true. Do we have anything else before we wrap it up? Anything amazing? We always like to end. Is there anything you guys have got that's amazing? It doesn't have to be games. Anything amazing you guys are doing? Anything you're super excited? A TV show, a movie, music?
Kind of just keeping on. I think the next couple of weeks is going to be really fun in terms of just releases.
I just looked down that calendar. I'm like, man, there's a lot of good stuff coming to play.
There is, yeah. September's got a very busy month. Long, like early access titles like Satisfactory are finally hitting 1.0, and
Yep.
Oh, true.
You've got Star Wars next week, which is gonna have some sort of discussion around it, regardless of what happens.
Of course, yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun. Whether you take part in the hate brigade or the whatever it is around that game.
Hey, you know
Yeah.
what?
It's just
Every
fun to
game's
read.
not for everybody. Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Like, at the end of the day, as long as you don't take it too seriously, I think it's just fun to be a part of that discussion.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm looking forward to, is just the big games for the rest of the year, and playing them all and having conversations around them.
Yep. What about you, Ebontis? Anything amazing? Anything on your channel?
So yeah, you'll look for some. I can say I am going to be kind of playing and reviewing Star Wars. That's all I can say, but that's going to be
Can
there.
we say that?
Yes.
Yeah,
you could
we
say
can.
you're playing Star Wars.
I did
I'm
look
playing Star
through
Wars.
just, yep. So yeah, playing that. But yeah, I mean, I looked down the list and like Astrobot and Natria, the last song, I've kind of got
Space
an idea,
Marine
like
2.
Space
Space
Marine,
Marine 2,
start looks incredible.
Frostpunk 2,
Oh, yeah.
and then October
Damn, yeah.
8th, October 8th altogether is Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred, Silent Hill 2, and like the next episode of Destiny. So that is a very busy day for me.
Yeah.
The closed beta test for First Berserker Kazan, Metaphor Refantasio, Dragon Age Veilguard, like 2 months I'm like, there's not enough time to
It's packed.
play those games. So then, I'll do the joke. If anybody saw that recently about sizes of things, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like a lot of fun stuff, but on a completely separate note, I keep looking over to check on her. We're actually fostering our first dog. So I got huskies. I've always wanted a husky. Got married, got a house, and got our first husky. We lost her back in February. She got to about 11, almost 12. But we have 2 more right now. And then we actually just kind of have a foster husky that we're fostering right now. She's about half Malamute, half husky. She's about 50 pounds, totally adorable, ridiculous, and just kind of doing the foster thing for the first
They're
time. But
beautiful dogs, man.
Yeah.
They force
Oh.
you to get out a lot, and
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's like it walks every day. Yeah, it's like we keep them, but the foster pieces, my wife has like a heart of gold for animals, and if she could ever adopt them all, she would, but I know we can't do that. So this is kind of a way to help out Texas Husky Rescue because we're in the Dallas area.
Oh, that's
It just-
something Penty mentions in the exact same rescue. Weird.
Oh, yeah.
He lives in Texas too.
Yeah, so we got our third one, Midnight, who's kind of on the other side right now. We got him from Texas Husky Rescue. And then she's like, well, we can't really do 3, but she still wants to help and stuff. So fostering our first dog and just kind of finding a home for one. And the biggest thing is just to try not to foster fail, is to end up keeping it. So it's just kind of one of those where it's like, but I think kind of the thing that I've heard and other people doing like rescues or training and stuff is like, if you don't fail and you help it find a home, you can keep helping find a home, which will be kind of a thing. So
Very
just
awesome.
that kind of a new thing. So totally
about
random,
you?
but
Anything for you, Johnny?
nothing super exciting. I've been working on the song. It's been a lot
Excellent.
of fun, and yeah, just enjoying games, man. You know, Wukong, some League, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Don't get too crazy with the league. You gotta stay sane.
No, I have a
Yeah, no
strict
shit.
regimen. I can
Ah,
only
there you
play
go.
3 games. I play my 3 block. It's my dojo. I go in for my 3
Smart.
ranked games, and I'm
Nice.
out.
Smart. That's the way to do it.
For me, you guys, I guess we are allowed to say that. I usually just keep shut now. But we are allowed to say we're doing Star Wars, so that review will come whenever that embargo is. And then you will see some other videos from me. I think we look next month to have a couple other people come on the podcast as well. JP, by the way, anytime. I know that unfortunately we overlap with your streaming, but I would love to have you on anytime. It's been awesome. I always love.
Yeah, definitely.
We get good guests because I vet everybody. I'm like, I listen and go, yeah, that person will be okay with us because we can be a lot. But
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure. And for me, yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything specific either. Just super excited for the games that are coming out. It's going to be an absolute blast. If you guys get a chance, subscribe to Ebontis. Go check out. Now, I didn't ask. Itmejp JP.
Yeah.
Is that like Itme
Ooh.
JP?
Yeah.
Okay.
It stems from the idea that if it's me, JP, it's 7 letters, and I like 6 letters better than 7. And
So it
also
made
phonetically, it
perfect
just sounds better.
Gotcha.
And I like the fact that it's 4 with the capitalized JP at the end from like a, I don't
Looks
know.
clean. Yeah.
It was an old IRC name
Okay.
back in
Oh,
the
man.
day.
That's
now I
my
feel-
my name's from
I know
D&D,
we're all
so I
old,
know where
but
these
yeah,
come from.
like
Yeah.
yeah, IRC is like woof. Yeah.
Before that, I was Moogle, so I'm very glad that I went with what I currently have instead of Moogle.
I was Angry Centaur Gaming. Trust me, ACG is much better. There's some things that
Hey,
was
we all make it work.
we all
Yep.
yeah, and we all make big mistakes. Anyway, that'll be it for us. If you guys get a chance when this is over, if you could go and comment on it and check out iTunes or Spotify and rate it. That'll be it for us. This will go up on iTunes and Spotify in a couple hours. Thanks again to these guys for guesting. That was an absolute blast. Everybody else, peace out and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
See ya.